Chapter 491. Moreover, if Tang Ao only used the heavenly polar pupils to fight, just like how Tang Ao dealt with the bone-winged tiger, he could use the heavenly polar pupils to attack or interfere with his opponent. Tang Ao could use the heavenly polar pupils throughout every battle. At this moment, Tang Ao had already mastered two abilities of the sky polar eyes. Other than the purple electricity mysterious ice, there was also the ice crystal mysterious array. However, Tang Ao still didn't know how Su Ning used the ability to strengthen the mystic frost chi. There were many legends about the sky polar eyes in the black-yellow continent, but there was almost no specific method to use it. In terms of rarity, the number of people who possessed the sky polar eyes was even lower than the number of people who possessed the hidden jade and stone. Therefore, there were many cultivation methods for the hidden jade and stone. However, even the Seven Kills sect, one of the 8 great sects in the black-yellow continent, had no information on the sky polar eyes. Fortunately, Tang Ao's hidden jade and stone had a powerful ability to assist in cultivation. Therefore, even though Tang Ao wasn't born with the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao was able to use the sky polar eyes freely in a short period of time. In addition, Tang Ao had discovered the 2 secret skills of the sky polar eyes. After the Shinong Ruins expedition was over, Tang Ao would transplant the sky polar eyes to Su Ning and teach her these 2 secret skills. Thinking about how Su Ning had begged Lu Lingxian to transplant her sky polar eyes to him before she was sealed in ice, Tang Ao was even more determined to get the Shinong grass from the Shinong Ruins to heal Su Ning. At this moment, Su Ning was lying in the snow cave. With 1,000-year mysterious ice sealing her body and the jade bone life, soul, sustaining her life, there wouldn't be any problems for 30 days. Therefore, Tang Ao had to get the Shinong grass for Su Ning within 30 days. After Tang Ao dispersed his sky polarity eyes, he returned to the ground. Tang Ao didn't leave immediately, because Tang Ao's soul power could sense that there were a few more uninvited guests here. Heavenly Polar Pupil, stay here and scram. Baifeng looked at the azure light in Tang Ao's eyes that had yet to completely dissipate and spoke to Tang Ao without concealing his greed. Baifeng had originally come here with White Stone and the other 2 to hunt the skeletal tiger. However, after seeing Tang Ao's eyes, which he suspected to be the sky polarity pupils, Baifeng decided to observe him for a while before revealing himself. Now, however, Baifeng was 100% certain that Tang Ao's eyes were the sky polarity pupils. A man's wealth was his own ruin. If a treasure like the sky pole pupil was in the possession of Dongswani and the other top disciples of the 8 great sects of the Bound of Yellow, others would not dare to snatch it so brazenly even if they coveted it. However, although Tang Ao was a disciple of the 7 Kills sect, Tang Ao was a rising star. Therefore, people from other factions didn't know much about Tang Ao. It could be said that apart from a few people from the 7 Kills sect, no one else knew that Tang Ao was a disciple of the 7 Kills sect. Of course, this was excluding Qin Yueshuang, who had always been at odds with Tang Ao. After all, back in Bluestone City, Qin Yueshuang had personally seen Tang Ao join the 7 Kills sect. When the sky polarity pupils were in Tang Ao's possession, others would covet them. If others knew that Su Ning possessed the sky polarity pupils, Su Ning would definitely meet a tragic end. Chapter 492. Seeing Tang Ao remain silent, Baifeng became even more complacent. Although Baifeng also knew that Tang Ao's strength was not ordinary, Baifeng was sure that Tang Ao was also a disciple from small sect. After seeing the Bai clan's jade pendant on Tang Ao's waist, Baifeng didn't dare to make a move. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what I said? I told you to leave the sky piercing eyes and scram. Baifeng tightened his grip on the Bai clan's jade pendant as he spoke. The threat in his words was self-evident. Leaving the sky-piercing eyes meant that Tang Ao would dig his eyes out. This was an extremely sinful thing, but when Baifeng spoke of it, it seemed as if it was even simpler than eating and drinking. It wasn't difficult to discern from this that even though Baifeng wore bright and beautiful clothes, He was an extremely vicious and evil person. Is the Bai family so lawless? Tang Ao didn't answer Bai Feng's question. Instead, he tacitly agreed. Tang Ao had always been very casual and rarely acted like this. Every time Tang Ao acted like this, it meant that someone was about to die. Regardless of whether it was Bai Shan from back then or Bai Feng, they were both extremely arrogant and insufferably arrogant. The Bai clan of the primordial clan seemed to be a very evil clan. Lawless? Ha ha ha. After Bai Feng heard Tang Ao's words, he suddenly faced the sky and laughed wildly. I wouldn't dare say elsewhere, but in the underworld Emperor Mountain Range, the Bai clan of the primordial clan is the law. As Bai Feng spoke, he pinched the soft part of the body of a pretty girl next to him. Coincidentally, Tang Ao recognized this girl's clothes. Although this girl's sect wasn't a top sect like the Black Yellow 8 sects, it was still a very powerful sect. This was because this girl's sect was called the Sky Elixir sect. In Tang Ao's previous life, the two old monsters of the Sky Elixir sect were friends with Tang Ao. The three of them often discussed the Pill Tao together. In Tang Ao's previous life, the Heavenly Elixir sect was also a famous sect in the Black Yellow continent. However, he did not expect that after 10,000 years, the Heavenly Elixir sect would decline to such an extent. Even the female disciples of the Heavenly Elixir sect were bullied and humiliated. Tang Ao could tell that although this young girl was following by Bai Feng's side, she was obviously forced by Bai Feng. When Bai Feng touched her, the girl's eyes were filled with despair. Tang Ao was not interested in the arrogant Bai family disciple. He looked at the girl and asked, "You are a disciple of the Heavenly Elixir School. Who is Zhang Heshuan to you?" Bai Feng and the others were stunned when they heard Zhang Heshuan's name. The Heavenly Elixir sect was not a small sect, so Bai Feng naturally knew the higher-ups of the Heavenly Elixir sect. However, this was the first time Bai Feng had heard of the name Zhang Heshuan. Bai Feng already saw Tang Ao's heavenly polar eyes as something in the bag. Therefore, Bai Feng believed that Tang Ao was only saying this name to buy time. However, Bai Feng was not anxious. The fact that Tang Ao could fight the double-winged bone-winged tiger to a standstill showed that Tang Ao had some ability. If he could use the family's name to make Tang Ao hand over the heavenly polar eyes, Bai Feng would not want to fight with Tang Ao. Chapter 493. Therefore, Bai Feng was not worried that Tang Ao would resist. If he handed over the sky polar eye now, Tang Ao would only lose the sky polar eye. If Tang Ao dared to resist, the Bai family had the ability to make sure that Tang Ao would never be able to leave the underworld Emperor Mountain Range. While Bai Feng was thinking viciously, Shun Yishue, who was beside him, was shocked. Even in the Heavenly Elixir sect, only a few people knew the name of Zhang Heshuan. However, Tang Ao, who was from another power, actually knew the name of the founder of the Heavenly Elixir sect. How could Shun Yishue not be shocked? In his previous life, Tang Ao was the invincible demon lord of the Black Yellow continent. Tang Ao traveled the world alone and made a few friends. Zhang Heshuan was one of Tang Ao's few friends. Zhang Heshuan was one of the two elders of the Heavenly Elixir sect. Tang Ao often discussed the Pill Tao with the two of them. After Tang Ao died, the Heavenly Elixir sect was destroyed by the mysterious power. Tang Ao did not know. After Tang Ao died, the Heavenly Elixir sect discovered an ancient relic. After opening the relic, the Heavenly Elixir sect seemed to have obtained something. However, on that day, everyone in the Heavenly Elixir sect was killed by the mysterious power, except for Zhang Heshuan. At that time, Zhang Heshuan also went out to look for Tang Ao, which was why he was lucky enough to escape. After the Heavenly Elixir sect was destroyed by the mysterious power, Zhang Heshuan secretly investigated for a long time, but found nothing. In desperation, Zhang Heshuan could only collect and organize the resources of the Heavenly Elixir sect. Then, he established the Heavenly Elixir sect on the ruins of the Heavenly Elixir sect. The Heavenly Elixir sect that Zhang Heshuan founded was the Heavenly Elixir sect that Shun Yishue was in now. However, Zhang Hechuan was worried that the mysterious power would attack the heavenly elixir sect again. Therefore, Zhang Hechuan concealed his identity until his death. Although Zhang Hechuan established the heavenly elixir sect on the ruins of the heavenly elixir sect, after so many years, the mysterious power that destroyed the heavenly elixir sect never came looking for trouble again. However, after the massacre, even though Zhang Hechuan rebuilt the heavenly elixir sect, the former glory of the heavenly elixir sect was gone forever. And now, the female disciples of the heavenly elixir sect were being bullied by the disciples of the Bai family in broad daylight. If the heavenly elixir school was at its peak, a force like the Bai family of the ancients wouldn't even be qualified to carry the heavenly elixir school shoes. How do you know the founder of the heavenly elixir sect, Senior Zhang Hechuan? As Shun Yixue spoke, she struggled free from Bai Feng's clutches and put some distance between them. Shun Yixue was indeed forced to do so. Including Shun Yixue, there were a total of 4 female disciples from the heavenly elixir sect. Among the 4, Shun Yixue was the eldest senior sister and had the highest cultivation. However, because Shun Yixue had contradicted Bai Feng had captured 3 of Shun Yixue's junior sisters. If Shun Yixue did not obey Bai Feng would immediately have his subordinates kill those 3 junior sisters. In her despair, Shun Yixue could only obey Bai Feng. However, now that Tang Ao mentioned the founder of the heavenly elixir sect, Zhang Hechuan, even if Shun Yixue was helpless, she knew that she could not bring shame to the sect. Therefore, Shun Yixue decided to ask Tang Ao clearly and immediately in her own life. In Shun Yixue's opinion, she was the one who had offended Bai Feng. After her death, Bai Feng should let her 3 junior sisters go. When Tang Ao heard Shun Yixue say that Zhang Hechuan was the founder of the heavenly elixir sect, his heart tightened. In Tang Ao's previous life, there were countless sects in the black-yellow continent. However, the heavenly elixir sect was the only sect that had a good relationship with Tang Ao. Moreover, Tang Ao clearly remembered that Zhang Hechuan was just an elder of the heavenly elixir sect. However, Shun Yixue said that Zhang Hechuan was the founder of the heavenly elixir sect. Chapter 494. In Tang Ao's previous life, Tang Ao, who was the demon lord, could be said to be the mortal enemy of all the forces in the black-yellow continent. Even though Tang Ao did not do anything evil, the sects unanimously thought that Tang Ao was an evil cultivator due to their different cultivation paths. Among the many forces, only the heavenly elixir sect was willing to be on good terms with Tang Ao. Moreover, Tang Ao had become close friends with Zhang Hechuan of the heavenly elixir sect. However, the heavenly elixir sect had fallen to such a state and seemed to have been cut off at some point. This made Tang Ao very confused. In Tang Ao's previous life, the heavenly elixir sect strength could be ranked in the top 3 in the entire black-yellow continent. Moreover, the heavenly elixir sect was on good terms with the first and second forces. Tang Ao really could not think of the reason why the heavenly elixir sect was cut off. As for Shun Yixue's question about the relationship between Tang Ao and Zhang Hechuan, Tang Ao saw that Shun Yixue was very nervous at the moment, so he half-jokingly said to her, "Zhang Hechuan and I are best friends. After such a long time, he should have ascended." When Tang Ao mentioned Zhang Hechuan, his expression was still a little sad. Zhang Hechuan was a gentleman who did not care about fame and fortune and had high attainments in the alchemy Tao. When the position of the heavenly elixir sect's sect master was passed down, Zhang Hechuan was the first choice. However, Zhang Hechuan took the initiative to withdraw from the competition and became an elder of the heavenly elixir sect. Unexpectedly, in the end, Zhang Hechuan did not become the sect master of the heavenly elixir sect, but became the founder of the heavenly elixir sect. Thinking of this, Tang Ao could not help but smile. When Shun Yixue heard Tang Ao's answer, her heart skipped a beat. The founder of the heavenly elixir sect, Zhang Hechuan, was a person from 10,000 years ago. Tang Ao was only a few years old, but he actually said that he was best friends with Zhang Hechuan. Originally, Shun Ishue thought that Tang Ao had some connection with the Heavenly Elixir sect. But now, it seemed that Tang Ao must have seen Zhang Hechuan's name somewhere. After that, Shun Ishue noticed that Tang Ao's expression alternated between an indifferent one moment and a smile the next. It was as if he had been scared silly by Bai Feng and the others. Shun Ishue, Bai Feng, and the others had been hiding in the dark. Naturally, they had seen the battle between Tang Ao and the double-winged bone-winged tiger. In Shun Ishue's opinion, since Tang Ao had the strength to fight against the double-winged bone-winged tiger, there was no need for him to be afraid of Bai Feng. If Shun Ishue herself had the power of the fourth level of the Seas of Soul's realm, she would definitely kill Bai Feng right now. Unfortunately, she was only at the first level of the Seas of Soul's realm, which was still a long way from the fourth level. Following that, Shun Ishue wondered if Tang Ao did not dare to make an enemy out of Bai Feng because he had exhausted too much in the battle with the bone-winged bone tiger. Thinking of that, Shun Ishue walked to Tang Ao's side. Senior, Bai Shan has been doing evil in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm for a long time. Senior, please help me enforce justice on behalf of the heavens. I will risk my life to help you. Shun Ishue looked at Tang Ao with an expectant gaze. In Shun Ishue's opinion, the reason why Tang Ao was like this was most likely because he was worried that he would be outnumbered. So, Shun Ishue expressed her willingness to help without hesitation. After Shun Ishue finished speaking, a hint of ridicule suddenly appeared in Bai Feng's eyes. In other places, Bai Feng didn't dare to say, but in the Underworld Emperor Mountain Range, Bai Feng believed that there was absolutely no one stupid enough to go against the Bai family. Putting aside the small characters in the Origin Martial Realm on the outskirts of the Underworld Emperor Mountain Range, in the depths of the Underworld Emperor Mountain Range, any martial artist above the Sea of Souls realm would basically submit to the Bai family under the might of his big brother, Bai Zhanyuan. Chapter 495. Under Shun Ishue's expectant gaze, Tang Ao shook his head. No need. After Tang Ao said this, Shun Ishue instantly felt like she had fallen into an ice cave. Shun Ishue was a bit confused. Since Tang Ao had the courage to fight against the double-winged bone tiger, why was he so timid when facing Bai Feng? He didn't even have the courage to join hands with her. Senior brother, are you really going to give the sky polar eyes to this despicable person? Shun Ishue still didn't want to give up. Hearing Shun Ishue's words, Tang Ao knew that Shun Ishue must have misunderstood his meaning. You probably misunderstood me. There is no need for junior sister to deal with these trash. After Tang Ao said this, he grabbed Shun Ishue's slender waist. Then, the Battle Saint Bone Life spirit instantly appeared, and Tang Ao also took Shun Ishue and dodged some distance away. And when Tang Ao and Shun Ishue pushed away a mountain rock that weighed thousands of pounds, it also smashed into the place where the two were just standing. This huge rock wasn't really a huge rock, but a life spirit from the 21st layer of heaven. If someone dared to use such a life spirit to hit Tang Ao when Tang Ao was at his peak, Tang Ao would definitely shatter this life spirit completely. But at this moment, because Tang Ao had been using the sky polar eyes in the battle with the double-winged bone tiger, Tang Ao was only left with less than 2 cities of spirit power. On Bai Feng's side, Bai Feng was at the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm, while Bai Shi and Bai Wei were both at the 2nd level of the Sea of Souls realm. And the person who had used the huge rock life spirit to hit Tang Ao was also at the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm. Although Tang Ao's strength was not bad, it was still a bit difficult for Tang Ao to fight 1 against 4 in this kind of situation. Moreover, Tang Ao didn't want to waste time here. Now that he was proficient in using the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao just wanted to get to the Shinnong ruins as soon as possible and find the Shinnong grass for Suning. As for the primordial Bai family, he would deal with them later. Bai Yin saw that Tang Ao had actually avoided his huge rock life spirit and was slightly surprised. Using the boulder life soul to injure Tang Ao was something that Bai Feng and Bai Yin had discussed. Bai Feng and the others would attract Tang Ao's attention, while Bai Yin would take the opportunity to use the Boulder Life Soul to injure Tang Ao. Bai saw that Tang Ao's attention on Bai Feng, so he activated the huge Rock Life Spirit. However, to Bai Yan's surprise, Tang Ao was able to dodge the sneak attack of the Boulder Life Soul under such circumstances. After Tang Ao dodged the Boulder Life Soul, he looked coldly at Bai Feng and the others. Before Bai Yin attacked Tang Ao only wanted to leave with Shen Yixue. Before Bai Yin attacked Tang Ao just wanted to leave with Shen Yixue. But now, Bai Yin had actually used a killing move on Tang Ao, so Tang Ao naturally had to return the favor. Bai Yan's attack could be said to be silent. Under Shen Yixue's soul power perception, she couldn't detect Bai Yan's life spirit at all. If not for Tang Ao, Shen Yixue would have died on the spot under Bai Yan's attack. Thinking of this, Shen Yixue laughed at herself. She couldn't even dodge one move, and she still wanted to help Tang Ao. Chapter 496. Right then, Tang Ao only had less than 30% of his spirit power left, and Bai Feng and the others were waiting for him to tire himself out. Thus, it would be very unwise for Tang Ao to fight them head-on. Therefore, Tang Ao decided to annoy Bai Feng a bit and then leave with Shen Yixue. The dense spiritual power in Tang Ao's body instantly rushed into Tang Ao's eyes. At the same time, Tang Ao's heavenly polarity pupils also opened. Bai Feng saw that Tang Ao not only did not want to hand over the sky polar eyes, but also wanted to fight with them. Bai Feng could not help but reveal a mocking expression. Bai Wei looked at Tang Ao with a complicated expression. Tang Ao had just saved them, but now they wanted to kill Tang Ao. Bai Wei did not think that she was a good person, but she had never done something like biting the hand that fed her before. So, Bai Wei thought for a moment and said to Bai Feng, "Brother Bai Feng, in the fight with the skeletal winged tiger, my meridians were damaged. I am afraid I will not be able to help in this fight." After Bai Wei said that, he looked at Bai Feng and the others with shame. Bai Wei was only a second-level C of Soul's Realm Warrior. Facing a fourth-level C of Soul's Realm Warrior like Tang Ao with the sky polar eyes, Bai Feng originally wanted Bai Wei and the others to be cannon fodder while his own Bai Yin attacked and killed Tang Ao. But now that Bai Wei mentioned that he was injured, Bai Feng could not force Bai Wei to fight Tang Ao in front of everyone. Therefore, Bai Feng only looked at Bai Wei meaningfully, then looked at Whitestone. "Younger brother Whitestone, were you injured in the battle with the double-winged bone-winged tiger just now?" Bai Feng looked arrogant and domineering on the surface, but in reality, he was also a scheming person. Bai Shi originally wanted to show off in front of Bai Feng, and then follow Bai Feng into the main family like Bai Yin and enjoy more training resources. Thus, after Bai Feng asked, Whitestone immediately said, "Brother Bai Feng, we only had a brief contact with the double-winged bone-winged tiger just now, so I'm fine." "Good. Since you're fine, let's take down this bastard who's looking down on the Bai family." After Bai Feng finished speaking, Bai Feng and the other two instantly shot toward Tang Ao. Whitestone wanted to win Bai Feng's favor, so he put in even more effort. As for the matter of Tang Ao saving him from the double-winged bone-winged tiger, Whitestone had long forgotten about it. Of Bai Feng's trio, Bai Shi was the weakest. However, he chose to attack Tang Ao from the middle. As for Bai Feng and Bai Yin, they charged towards Tang Ao from the left and right. In the face of such a situation, Tang Ao sneered. Next, a row of ice pillars instantly appeared before Bai Feng and the other two. Just now, Bai Feng and the others had been hiding in the dark and had seen Tang Ao fight with the double-winged bone-winged tiger with sky polar eyes. Therefore, they had been secretly guarding against Tang Ao's sky polar eyes. Therefore, after Tang Ao summoned the ice pillars with sky polar eyes, Bai Feng and the other two immediately turned to avoid the row of ice pillars. After Bai Feng dodged the ice pillars, he immediately mocked. "It seems that the famous sky polar eyes in the black-yellow continent is just SOSO. If you can't hit." However, before Bai Feng could finish speaking, The ice pillars that had appeared in front of Bai Feng and the other two instantly exploded. Chapter 497. Tang Ao raised his head and saw that Bai Wei had already lit a stick of incense in his hand. Bai Feng wasn't the strongest member of the Bai family in Underworld Emperor Mountain Range. Above him was Bai Zhanyuan, who was at the 6th level of the Sea of Souls realm. The aura that rushed over was extremely powerful. It must be Bai Zhanyuan, who was at the 6th level of the Sea of Souls realm. Tang Ao and Bai family were mortal enemies, so Tang Ao didn't dare to delay. After focusing his sky polar eyes, he immediately hugged Shen Yixue and left. And with Tang Ao focusing his sky polar eyes, Bai Feng and the other two's bones were all shattered by the bone-chilling cold. Among them, Whitestone's cultivation was the lowest. At this moment, Whitestone's bones had already been shattered by that powerful shockwave. Now that he was frozen into an ice sculpture, he could still maintain his standing posture. However, when the cold ice dissipated, he would immediately collapse onto the ground. After Tang Ao left with Shen Yixue, Bai Zhanyuan, who was dressed in white, arrived. When he saw that Bai Feng and the other two were frozen, his face couldn't help but turn cold. All the martial artists above the Sea of Souls realm in Underworld Emperor Mountain Range should have already submitted to the Bai family, and the one who froze Bai Feng and the other two must be a Sea of Souls realm martial artist. After Bai Zhanyuan arrived, the ice pillar that sealed Bai Feng suddenly cracked open. Then, the spirit energy in Bai Feng's body shook, and the ice pillar shattered into ice shards that filled the sky. Then, Bai Feng punched the ice pillar that froze Bai Yin, and Bai Yin also shook the ice pillar, shattering it completely. After that, Bai Feng casually knocked on Bai Shi's ice pillar. However, before Bai Feng could knock on the ice pillar, Bai Zhanyuan pulled him back. "Big brother, what do you mean?" Bai Feng looked at Bai Zhanyuan in confusion. His bones were all shattered by someone. If you break the ice pillar now, Bai Shi will definitely die. Bai Zhanyuan looked at the ice pillar that froze Bai Shi and sized it up with interest. Then, Bai Zhanyuan continued. To be able to use the power of ice to such an extent, could it be the legendary sky polar eyes? Bai Zhanyuan asked as he stared at Bai Feng. This younger brother of his had always coveted the throne of the primordial Bai families by family patriarch. It would be a waste for a heaven-defying item like the sky polarity pupil to be in his hands. He had to have it in his own hands. Now that Bai Zhanyuan was here, Bai Feng knew that he couldn't hide the matter of the heavenly polar eyes any longer. Hence, he spilled the beans. Bai Zhanyuan nodded inwardly after hearing this. In that case, the person who possesses the heavenly extremity eyes is a martial artist at the 4th level of the spiritual ocean tier. Bai Feng didn't say anything about Tang Ao's strength just now. He only talked about the fight between Tang Ao and the double-winged bone tiger. And it was also because of this that Bai Zhanyuan deduced that Tang Ao was a martial artist at the 4th level of the spiritual ocean realm. Bai Feng shook his head. "I can only say that he is most likely a 4th level Sea of Souls realm martial artist, because I can't tell his true strength at all. However, that bone-winged tiger that he fought with was indeed at the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm." After saying this, Bai Feng patted off the ice shards on his body, then looked at Bai Shi, who was frozen in the ice pillar. "What should we do with Bai Shi?" Bai Zhanyuan took a look at the ice pillar, then said with a faint smile, "Bury the ice pillar on the spot. All the bones in his body have been shattered, so there's no hope for him." After saying this, Bai Zhanyuan's figure flashed and disappeared. Obviously, he went to chase after Tang Ao. Meanwhile, Bai Feng gave Bai Yin a look. After Bai Yin understood, he immediately punched a deep hole in the ground, then buried the ice pillar that froze Bai Shi in the deep hole. Chapter 498. Hence, Tang Ao immediately adjusted his breathing to recover his spiritual power. In the area where Tang Ao fought with Bai Feng and the rest, it was still snowing. But in this strange stone forest, the temperature was very low, but it was abnormally dry. After being in the underworld Emperor Mystic realm for so long, Tang Ao was used to such strange phenomena. "I'm Shen Yixue. May I know your name, senior brother?" Now that they were out of danger, Shen Yixue gradually relaxed. I'm Tang Ao. I have some ties with your heavenly elixir sect. Oh, senior brother Tang Ao. Are you saying that you're good friends with the founder of our heavenly elixir sect, Zhang Hechuan? Shen Ishu asked in disbelief. Tang Ao knew that this matter couldn't be explained clearly, so he didn't continue. You seem to have something on by phone. Is that why you're afraid of him? Shen Ishue's expression immediately dimmed when she heard Tang Ao's words. There are a total of 4 people from our heavenly elixir sect. But other than me, the other 3 junior sisters have been captured by Baifeng. I don't know the exact location. I've been with Baifeng for a while now, and I've seen him capture many warriors. Hearing Shen Ishue's words, Tang Ao felt a little strange. Did Baifeng have a screw loose? That's why he captured warriors from various sects in the underworld Emperor Mountain Range. Or did Baifeng have some other motives? However, why would Baifeng go around capturing cultivators for no reason? Tang Ao vaguely felt that this matter wasn't simple. But now, Tang Ao didn't know what Baifeng was up to. Junior sister Shun, I'll be heading to the Shinnong ruins in a while. Do you have any plans? This time, Tang Ao's goal was to head to the Shinnong ruins to search for the Shinnong grass. If Shun Ishue wanted to head to the Shinnong ruins, Tang Ao could go with her. If Shun Ishue wanted to go somewhere else, then Tang Ao could bid farewell to her. I want to find my junior sisters now. Since senior brother Tang Ao wants to head to the Shinnong ruins, let's bid farewell here. Although Shin Ishue also wanted to go to the Shinnong ruins to try her luck, now that her 3 junior sisters were missing, Shin Ishue was still very worried about their safety. Therefore, Shin Ishue didn't plan to go with Tang Ao. And at the place where Tang Ao and Baifeng had fought, Bai Yin buried the white stone. Burying the white stone underground was Bai Zhenyuan's idea. Of course, this was not to let the white stone rest in peace. There was a deeper meaning to this. However, only Bai Zhenyuan and Baifeng knew about this matter. Everyone else was still in the dark. After burying the white stone, Baifeng took out a map. There were 360 black circles drawn on the map. Some of the black circles had a red cross on them, while some did not have any markings. After Bai How Baifeng Zhan Bai Black How Feng Zhaz goes. At this point, there were only 2 black circles that had not yet been marked with a red cross. Seeing this, Baifeng discreetly glanced at Bai Yin and Bai Wei. If he could find a suitable cultivator, he would find 2 more to bury. If he couldn't, he would bury Bai Wei and Bai Yin. But Baifeng still hoped to meet 2 unlucky people, because Bai Yin was a 4th level C of Soul's Realm Warrior. Although Baifeng wasn't afraid of him, it would take a lot of time to deal with him. Chapter 499. As for the tomb-suppressing beast that Lu Lingxian had mentioned, Tang Ao had no idea how to deal with it because he knew too little about it. As Tang Ao got closer to the Shinnong ruins, the smell of herbs filled the air. After smelling this odor, Tang Ao's swift figure stopped. Then, Tang Ao jumped onto a thick tree branch and sat down. Under this smell, Tang Ao felt the spirit power flow in his body become much smoother. If it were any other martial artist, they would have followed the smell without hesitation to find the treasure. However, Tang Ao stopped in his tracks. This was because Tang Ao had the legendary hidden jade body, and for martial artists with this kind of body, their meridians would be unobstructed. But now, Tang Ao could clearly feel the spirit power flow in his body become smoother. This meant that without him knowing, Tang Ao had fallen into the trap. Tang Ao was an astral-reaching realm martial artist in his previous life. As for the methods of astral-reaching realm martial artists, Tang Ao knew them better than anyone else. Therefore, Tang Ao did not find it strange that he had fallen into the trap unknowingly. At this moment, Tang Ao was glad that he had discovered it early and had not yet entered the Shinnong ruins. Otherwise, once he entered the Shinnong ruins and discovered the abnormality in his body, it would have been too late. Tang Ao sat down on the tree branch. The light green spots of the jade bone life spirit continued to flow in Tang Ao's meridians. Under Tang Ao's careful inspection, he finally found the abnormality in his body. At this moment, there were strands of light green chi flow in Tang Ao's body. It was this special chi flow that made Tang Ao feel the spirit power flow in his body become faster. However, under the probing of Tang Ao's soul power, he could see that these streams of air were constantly devouring Tang Ao's spiritual power and slowly growing. Therefore, it wasn't that the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body had sped up, but that the spiritual power flowing through Tang Ao's meridians was constantly being devoured by the pale green energy. With less spiritual power, the burden on his meridians was instantly reduced, and he naturally felt that the spiritual power in his body had sped up. After discovering this reason, Tang Ao felt a lot more relaxed. As long as they knew the source of the problem, it wouldn't be difficult to solve it. If it was an ordinary martial artist, they could use the spiritual power in their body to slowly expel the light green air from their body. If one's spiritual power was strong and domineering, they could even directly crush the pale green air currents. Although Tang Ao's spiritual power was powerful and overbearing, Tang Ao did not intend to use this method. This was because under Tang Ao's control, the jade bone life soul in Tang Ao's body was slowly devouring the pale green air currents. The jade bone life soul seemed to be the natural enemy of the pale green air currents. Under the corrosion of the jade bone life soul, the pale green air currents could not resist at all. Moreover, the pale green air currents seemed to be a great supplement for the jade bone life soul. After devouring all the pale green air currents in Tang Ao's body, the jade bone life soul actually grew quite a bit. After solving the problem in his body, Tang Ao did not immediately enter the Emperor Ming's secret realm. This was because under Tang Ao's soul power perception, there were no spiritual power fluctuations in the Emperor Ming's secret realm at this moment. In this forest, there were many martial artists like Tang Ao who had discovered the abnormality in their bodies and were thus eliminating the pale green air currents in their bodies. Chapter 500. At first, Tang Ao didn't understand why the warriors here could sense the abnormality in their bodies. However, when Tang Ao's soul power detected a stone tablet, Tang Ao immediately understood. This was because the stone tablet said, "Those who wish to obtain my inheritance have to pass 3 tests. The first test is to dissolve the rejuvenation chi in your body." The stone tablet explained the rejuvenation chi in detail. With these explanations and things to take note of, even those with poor talent would probably be able to dissolve the rejuvenation chi in their bodies according to the instructions. Furthermore, the stone tablet said at the end that even if one couldn't dissolve the rejuvenation chi, there was no need to be nervous. If one couldn't dissolve the rejuvenation chi, it meant that the warrior was not fated with the Shinnong ruins. As long as they retreated 150 kilometers away from the Shinnong ruins, the rejuvenation chi would dissipate. Be in his previous life or his current one, Tang Ao had explored many heritage ruins. However, Tang Ao had never encountered a heritage ruin as open and above-board as the Shinnong Dao Lords. After Tang Ao used the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to consume the rejuvenation chi in his body, he adjusted his condition to its peak. Following that, he passed through the forest and walked towards the entrance of the Shinnong ruins. Typically, the test of the heritage ruins would only begin after entering the ruins. It was the first time that Tang Ao encountered a test that began outside the ruins like the Shinnong ruins. When the people sitting cross-legged in the forest saw Tang Ao get up and leave not long after he arrived, everyone's expression became complicated. Some were envious, some were jealous, and some were disdainful. However, these people's expressions didn't affect Tang Ao at all. Tang Ao didn't come to the Shinnong ruins for the heritage, but to obtain the Shinnong grass in the Shinnong ruins. Su Ning had been injured by golden-toothed snake lord's poisonous stinger and was in critical condition. Tang Ao had to find the legendary Shinnong grass in the Shinnong ruins that could cure all poisons in the world to save Su Ning. Therefore, after Tang Ao adjusted his condition to its peak, he immediately set off for the Shinnong ruins. Tang Ao was not the first to walk out of the forest. Before Tang Ao, many people had already walked out of the forest. However, after these people left the forest, they never came out again. It was like a stone sinking into the sea without a sound. Therefore, everyone started to worry about the Shun Nong historical site. Before they were completely confident, they didn't dare to try it. Naturally, Tang Ao didn't know what these people were thinking. If Tang Ao knew, he would inevitably laugh out loud. In this forest, the only thing he could do was follow the instructions on the stone tablet to dissolve the chi of rejuvenation in his body. Apart from that, he could not do anything useful to explore the ruins. If they didn't personally go to the ruins to take a look, they wouldn't know what exactly would happen in the ruins. Thus, they wouldn't be able to come up with any countermeasures. Thus, Tang Ao did not hesitate to go to the entrance of the Shinnong ruins. After arriving at the entrance, Tang Ao took out the map that Lu Lingxian had given him. After taking a look, Tang Ao walked into the ruins. The moment he entered, Tang Ao felt as though the world was spinning. This feeling meant that the entrance to the ruins was a teleportation array. Since it was a teleportation array, the map that Lu Lingxian had given him was probably useless. The map that Lu Lingxian had given Tang Ao showed that the outer perimeter of the Shinnong ruins was filled with rooms. However, Tang Ao was currently in a world of ice and snow. Chapter 501. While Tang Ao was puzzled, he suddenly remembered the stone tablet he saw in the forest not long ago. The stone tablet said that if he wanted to obtain the inheritance in the Shinnong ruins, he must pass through 3 stages. The rejuvenation chi in the forest was the first stage, so this should be the second stage. After passing the 3rd stage, he should be able to reach the inside of the Shinnong ruins. After figuring this out, Tang Ao began to think about how to pass the 2nd stage of the Shinnong ruins. At this moment, the place where Tang Ao stood was a vast snowy land. As far as the eye could see, it was a vast expanse of whiteness, and the snowflakes that were flying in the sky were quite unusual. After Tang Ao quietly felt for a moment, he found that these snowflakes that were everywhere actually had a weak suppressing effect on his spirit power. Moreover, Tang Ao also found that although there were snowflakes everywhere in this area, some places were very dense, and some places were very sparse. After this discovery, Tang Ao came to the area with dense snowflakes and quietly felt for a while. He found that it was indeed as Tang Ao had thought. The denser the snowflakes were, the more powerful the suppression on the spirit power was. The place where Tang Ao was standing at the moment was not the densest area, but the spirit power inside Tang Ao's body was actually suppressed to the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul's realm. This discovery made Tang Ao a bit happy, because there must be no powerful beasts in this area due to the influence of the strange snowflakes. Whether it was the beasts that entered from the outside or the original beasts in this area, under these conditions, they would definitely not be able to grow into beasts that were too high rank. Right now, the area where Tang Ao was at, although the snowflakes were densest, it was not the densest. It could only be regarded as above average. And Tang Ao glanced at the area with the densest snowflakes in front of him. In such an area, Tang Ao estimated that his strength would probably be suppressed to the 1st level of the Sea of Soul's realm, or even the 9th level of the Origin Martial realm. While Tang Ao was pondering, Tang Ao's expression suddenly changed. This was because Tang Ao saw an earth-shattering snowstorm coming in his direction. Under Tang Ao's soul power detection, this blizzard's power was several times more powerful than Qin Fingyin's tornado spell. Warriors below the 3rd level of the Sea of Soul's realm would be severely wounded if they were to be grazed by this blizzard. Although Tang Ao was at the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm, facing this kind of snowstorm, Tang Ao was also prepared to avoid it. The snowstorm moved very quickly. Not long after Tang Ao discovered the snowstorm arrived at the position where Tang Ao had just been standing. Tang Ao originally wanted to leave, but when Tang Ao discovered that the blizzard was only raging in midair, he changed his mind. Under the protection of the battle Saint Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao continuously escaped into the snowy ground. The blizzard just now was too strong, and it was inevitable that he would be hit if he stayed on ground. Therefore, Tang Ao escaped into the snowy ground. After Tang Ao went down to a height of 300 feet, the blizzard outside could no longer attack him. So, Tang Ao continuously sent out palm strikes in all directions and sat down in a snow cave. Chapter 502. Seeing this, Tang Ao was secretly amazed. The Shinong ruins was indeed extraordinary, especially in this world of ice and snow. Tang Ao deeply understood what it meant to have no way out. If one stayed on the ground, there would be a terrifying snowstorm, and the snowstorm had a strong suppressive effect on a martial artist's spiritual power. In order to avoid the snowstorm, burrowing underground was obviously a very good idea. However, after Tang Ao burrowed underground, he discovered that his soul power was severely suppressed underground. With Tang Ao's current strength, he could clearly sense everything within 100 miles with his soul power fully activated. However, at this moment, Tang Ao's soul power could not detect anything more than 3 feet away. This was very terrifying. Tang Ao's soul power had always been nourished by the Jade Bone Life Soul in his body, so it was abnormally strong. However, even with the strength of Tang Ao's soul power, he could only do this much. If other martial artists burrowed underground, they would probably be unable to use their soul power. Moreover, Tang Ao discovered that this ice and snow was not simple. If Tang Ao did not have the skypole eyes at this moment, then Tang Ao would have already been hit. This was because Tang Ao discovered that there was a strange insect in the ice and snow that could not be detected by his soul power. Tang Ao's eyes glowed with a trace of azure light, and then Tang Ao used the skypole eyes to see these squirming insects in the ice and snow. These insects were somewhat like transparent ants. After Tang Ao burrowed underground, these transparent insects were very excited to come over from Tang Ao's position. Moreover, Tang Ao also found some dry bones underground. Logically speaking, when a martial artist died in this kind of ice and snow, their physical body could be preserved. However, these dried bones that Tang Ao discovered did not have a trace of flesh. This meant that these insects were clearly not vegetarians. They were not to be trifled with. Of course, Tang Ao was not to be trifled with. When Tang Ao discovered that these transparent insects were constantly approaching him, a flame instantly ignited in Tang Ao's hand. After that, Tang Ao condensed the flame into an explosive fireball and shot it towards the area with the most insects. For these insects that grew up in ice and snow, fire should be their nemesis. However, when Tang Ao's fireball blasted into the swarm, a shocking scene unfolded before Tang Ao. Just as Tang Ao's fireball was about to hit the swarm actually opened their mouths at the same time, and then a bone-chilling cold flew towards Tang Ao's fireball. However, the cold did not extinguish the fireball. Instead, it wrapped around the fireball. Because Tang Ao's spiritual power was very pure, the fireball was still burning even after it was wrapped in ice. However, as the swarm continued to spit, the flames of the fireball gradually dissipated. According to Tang Ao's soul power detection, the flames of the fireball seemed to have dissipated because the spiritual power was exhausted. However, with the sky polar eyes, Tang Ao could see that the fireball's spiritual power was indeed exhausted. However, this depletion of spiritual power was not caused by the burning of the fireball, but by the densely packed swarm of insects absorbing the spiritual power into their bodies. After dealing with the fireball that Tang Ao threw out, the swarm of insects continued to approach Tang Ao. These insects basically had no intelligence, and everything they did was based on their instincts. In their instincts, apart from the ice and snow, everything else in the ice and snow was their food. Moreover, the pure spiritual power in Tang Ao's body was an irresistible temptation to these insects. Chapter 503. At the moment when Tang Ao shot out the mystic cold chi, There was a trace of anger in the swarm, and then a more turbulent cold chi gushed towards Tang Ao's mystic cold chi. Obviously, these insects thought that attacking prey with cold chi was their exclusive ability. Tang Ao using the mystic cold chi to fight back against these insects was provoking them again. Therefore, the transparent insects in the swarm confronted Tang Ao with all their might. Because the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body was extremely pure, Tang Ao's mystic cold chi was also very powerful. But there were too many insects around, and the quality of the cold chi spat out by these ice insects was actually comparable to Tang Ao's mystic cold chi. Therefore, the ice insects suppressed Tang Ao in number. As the ice insects continued to spit cold chi, Tang Ao's mystic cold chi was also suppressed to the front of Tang Ao. "Hey, these insects want to play ice with me," Tang Ao said to himself, and then he put away the mystic cold chi. At the moment when Tang Ao put away the mystic cold chi, sky polar pupil suddenly bloomed a circle of blue light in all directions with Tang Ao as the center. After the blue light swept over, all the insects were frozen, and even the cold chi they spat was frozen in the air. Just now, this move was not used when Tang Ao was fighting with the human race martial artists or when he was fighting with the bone-winged tiger. Of course, it was not that Tang Ao did not want to use such a secret skill, but because the consumption of this move was too great. In order to seal these inconspicuous insects just now, Tang Ao had consumed 30% of his spiritual power. If he wanted to use this move to freeze the beasts or martial artists of the same realm, he was afraid that it would not be enough to drain the spiritual power in Tang Ao's body. Because this secret skill, Tang Ao could not reach the level of pointing at where to hit. He could only sweep in all directions. When Tang Ao was fighting with other martial artists or beasts, the martial artists or beasts would only be in one direction, and the cold chi in other directions would be completely wasted. Of course, if Tang Ao encountered the situation where he was besieged by the Fang Vipers, this secret skill would be very useful. If an ordinary martial artist was frozen by the sky polar eye's cold chi, it would not be easy to defrost. In the past, both Bai Feng and Bai Yin had been frozen by the extreme sky pupil's cold chi. Bai Feng had been able to break the extreme sky pupil's icicles because he possessed a unique treasure. However, Bai Yan's abilities were ordinary. After being frozen by the icicles, without Bai Feng's help, breaking Tang Ao's icicles would be extremely difficult. But these insects were frozen by Tang Ao, and Tang Ao had only been frozen for 10 breaths. They broke the ice of sky polar pupil and unconsciously moved away from Ao. Because they were born in ice and snow, these ice insects had a high resistance to cold chi. But sky polar pupil was not an ordinary thing. So after being frozen by sky polar pupil, these insects were instinctively afraid of sky polar pupil. Just when these insects were hesitating, suddenly another group of insects passed by. After the insects of both sides communicated, these insects immediately rushed in another direction. It seemed that they had found something in another place. When Tang Ao was on the snowfield, he did not find any traces of human martial artists. But at this moment, the movement of the insects, Tang Ao suspected that it should be related to other martial artists. Chapter 504. Hence there was such a scene. Thousands of insects traversed the area in front of him, while Tang Ao strolled leisurely behind the insects with the battle sage bone life soul. Tang Ao scanned his surroundings with the sky polar eyes and discovered that there were a lot of ice insects. Furthermore, there were a few larger ones among the ice insects. The ice worm looked like an ant, while the larger ice worm looked like a worker ant. However, at that moment, the ice insects seemed to be very anxious, as though something had happened ahead. All the ice insects were rushing forward. If it were any other time, Tang Ao would naturally be able to sense everything around him with his soul power fully activated. But now, Tang Ao's soul power was severely suppressed, so Tang Ao didn't know what was happening ahead. When these ice insects were frozen by Tang Ao's sky polar eyes, they were hesitant, but now they looked as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Seeing this, a question arose in Tang Ao's mind. Could there be an existence stronger than the sky polar eyes in this ice and snow? With this in mind, Tang Ao secretly became careful. Although Tang Ao had the protection of the battle Sagebone Life Soul, Tang Ao still didn't dare let his guard down. Although the battle Sagebone Life Soul was powerful, it had been ambushed by Long Juliang's silver feather arrow in the beginning. Later, it was melted by the ink octopus, and not long ago, it had been pierced by golden-toothed serpent lord's poisonous stinger. Therefore, Tang Ao tried his best to extend his soul power outwards, but under Tang Ao's full strength, Tang Ao's soul power could only extend to a range of 50 feet. He could no longer extend it outwards. A distance of 50 feet was far from enough to investigate the situation underground, but it was enough to defend against some threats. Tang Ao followed behind the swarm of insects, but the swarm didn't care about Tang Ao. Instead, they rushed forward. Although these insects were in a hurry, Tang Ao had to complain that the movement speed of these ice insects was too slow. After walking for so long, they still hadn't reached their destination. However, Tang Ao also discovered that there were complicated tunnels under the ice. These tunnels were about the same height as Tang Ao. At first, Tang Ao needed to break open a path by himself. However, after walking for a while, a ready-made path was opened up for Tang Ao. Due to the slow speed of breaking the ice, many of the ice worms also followed Tang Ao through the ready-made passage. With this ready-made channel, ice worms' movement speed was also a little faster. As Tang Ao walked through these icy tunnels, he used his soul power to scan his surroundings. With Tang Ao's soul power, he discovered that these tunnels had existed for a very long time. Thinking about how the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm opened once every 10,000 years, Tang Ao even wondered if these tunnels were dug by warriors who entered the Mystic Realm 10,000 years ago. After walking for some distance, Tang Ao's footsteps suddenly stopped. This was because Tang Ao found a dead person. Under Tang Ao's soul power, there was an ice cave behind the ice on Tang Ao's left, and there was a warrior sitting upright in the ice cave. Although this warrior was sitting upright, there was no vitality in his body. Obviously, he had been dead for a long time. Chapter 505. Therefore, after Tang Ao marked an ice worm with his soul power, Tang Ao immediately opened up a path towards the ice cave and approached it. The ice cave wasn't very far from Tang Ao's position, so Tang Ao arrived at the location of the ice cave after walking for a while. However, Tang Ao didn't rashly enter the ice cave, because Tang Ao had already seen many ice worm corpses around the ice cave. Although the ice worms were small, their corpses were stiff under the layer of ice and didn't melt. Apart from the ice worms, there were also some strange demon beast skeletons. These demon beasts had a common characteristic, which was that their bodies were relatively petite. Although Tang Ao hadn't seen these demon beasts before, he could tell a thing or two from the skeletons they left behind. Moreover, these demon bee skeletons were black and purple in color, and it was obvious that they had died from poison. In this case, the purple mist in the snow cave that didn't disperse was definitely a very powerful type of strange poison. Apart from the strange poison that didn't disperse in the snow cave, the ground of the snow cave was also engraved with an array that Tang Ao had never seen before. However, Tang Ao could tell from the runes on the array formation that this dead martial artist wasn't one of the martial artists that had entered the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm 10,000 years ago. Rather, it was someone who had entered the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm with Tang Ao and the others. It was just that there were too many people who had entered the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm, so Tang Ao didn't have much of an impression of this person. With a thought, Tang Ao's jade bone life, soul's pale green luster constantly jumped in Tang Ao's palm. This purple mist that didn't disperse made Tang Ao feel that it was a little powerful. Therefore, without knowing the details of the purple mist, Tang Ao decided to use the Jade Bone Life Soul to test it out. Tang Ao condensed the Jade Bone Life Soul into a pale green, transparent butterfly. Following that, he tore open a hole in the ice cavern and allowed the butterfly to fly in. After Tang Ao broke a hole in the defensive array, the purple mist immediately surged towards Tang Ao, but Tang Ao used black cold chi to seal the hole. After Tang Ao sealed the hole, the Jade Bone Life Soul in the snow cave became the purple mist target. The purple mist instantly flew towards the butterfly formed by the Jade Bone Life Soul, and the Jade Bone Life Soul flew over without showing any weakness. The moment the two collided, Tang Ao's soul felt a burning pain. A warrior's life soul was closely connected to the warrior. If the life soul was damaged, the warrior would also be injured. Under the collision between the Jade Bone Life Soul and the purple mist, the Jade Bone Life Soul was scattered by the purple mist. Although the Jade Bone Life Soul quickly returned to its original state, Tang Ao still clearly felt that the Jade Bone Life Soul had been injured by the evil purple mist. Seeing this, Tang Ao couldn't help but put away the Jade Bone Life Soul. Then, Tang Ao looked at the snow cave with a troubled expression. After carefully circling the snow cave, Tang Ao realized that the array formation set up by the person wasn't very brilliant. Although Tang Ao wasn't a first-class array master, the array formation set up by Tang Ao was much stronger than this array formation. Moreover, Tang Ao could also see that this array formation didn't have an array formation that gathered spiritual power, which meant that this array formation relied on the spiritual power of the spirit stones to maintain. Once the spiritual power of the spirit stones was exhausted, the array formation would disappear, and the purple mist in the array formation would also escape outside. Tang Ao had already experienced the power of this purple mist. Once this purple mist escaped outside, it would definitely cause great harm. Therefore, Tang Ao was considering whether he should strengthen the array formation and increase its lifespan, or completely get rid of this purple mist. At the same time, Tang Ao secretly thought about it. The middle-aged cultivator sitting inside didn't have any fatal injuries on his body. In fact, he didn't even have any scars on his body. However, this person's vitality had completely drained away. Chapter 506. Subsequently, Tang Ao carefully explored the surroundings of the snow cave. The grade of the defensive array around the snow cave wasn't too high. Moreover, Tang Ao also discovered something different about it. That was, the young man sitting upright in the snow cave at the moment was extremely hidden, but with Tang Ao's eyesight, he could still see that under the defensive array, there was actually an offensive array hidden. Moreover, this offensive array was extremely unusual. 4 weak demonic insects like the ice worm and ice silkworm. This array would not be activated. However, if Tang Ao wanted to force his way into this array, Tang Ao was sure that this offensive array would be activated immediately. Moreover, unlike ordinary defensive arrays, this offensive array was of an extremely high grade. In Tang Ao's opinion, this offensive array could probably kill the martial artists on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Seeing this, Tang Ao was even more puzzled. Now it seemed that this snow cave was obviously not set up by the young man before his death. To set up such a hidden offensive array, even the strongest array master would not be able to set it up in a hurry before his death. However, Tang Ao only cared about his doubts, and at this moment, Tang Ao did not have the intention to break the array. After looking around the snow cave again, Tang Ao left. After Tang Ao left, the fingers of the young man in the snow cave suddenly moved and then stopped. At this moment, Tang Ao's soul power could only explore a range of 3 feet around him, so he naturally did not see this scene in the snow cave. Otherwise, Tang Ao would have broken this array to investigate. Because in Tang Ao's soul power perception just now, the young man in the snow cave had lost all his vitality and was obviously dead. After Tang Ao left the snow cave, he rushed to the location of the ice worms. The movement speed of the ice worms was too fast, and after Tang Ao spent so much time in the snow cave, these ice worms could not go far. Therefore, Tang Ao caught up with the ice worm army in a short while. At this moment, the ice worms were still in a hurry, like ants that found food and then called all their companions to carry it. However, Tang Ao's soul power detected that the ice bugs didn't seem excited at all. Instead, they all had a gloomy expression on their faces. It was obvious that something bad had happened, and they weren't moving food. Tang Ao did not know the destination of this group of ice worms. Otherwise, Tang Ao could have given away 10% of these ice worms. Of course, if Tang Ao knew the destination of ice worm, Tang Ao's most likely action would be to immediately go to ice worm's destination to see it. Tang Ao followed behind the swarm unhurriedly as he scanned the surroundings with his soul power. Under the probing of Tang Ao's soul power, Tang Ao indeed discovered another snow cave. In this snow cave, there were a few dried bones and a few relics. Because the ice worms were moving too slowly, Tang Ao walked into the snow cave again. Before Tang Ao entered the Shinnong ruins, he saw on the stone tablet that if he wanted to get the Shinnong inheritance, he had to pass 3 levels. The first level was to resolve the rejuvenation chi in his body. Tang Ao did it easily because he had the help of the Jade Bone Life Soul. The second level was the world of ice and snow in front of him. But after coming here for so long, Tang Ao had no clue how to clear it. When on the ground, Tang Ao had explored it. This world of ice and snow was boundless, and he couldn't see the exit at all. Chapter 507. Tang Ao soon arrived at this snow cave. Compared to the one Tang Ao had found before, this cave was a bit more collapsed. Apart from that, there were no defensive arrays in this snow cave. However, as soon as Tang Ao walked in, he realized that it was not that there were no defensive arrays, but because it had been so long, they had all disappeared. The reason why it had been so long was because Tang Ao had seen the arrays used in his previous life. These ancient formations were not lost, but after countless generations, they had been optimized into their current form. Because of the collapse of the snow cave, a lot of ice and snow had covered the remains of this person, and it was also because of this ice and snow that the remains of this person could be preserved. The Underworld Emperor's Secret Realm opened once every 10,000 years, and this person was obviously one of the first batch of martial artists to enter the Secret Realm 10,000 years ago. After entering the snow cave, Tang Ao took a look at the remains. There was no aura on the remains. Normally, the more powerful a martial artist was, the more soul power would be left on the remains after death. Even after some astral-reaching realm martial artist died, the soul power left on the remains could be used to possess people who were close to them. Therefore, when Tang Ao was searching for the inheritance of this astral-reaching realm martial artist, he had to be vigilant at all times. When Tang Ao died in his previous life, there was also a powerful soul power on the remains. But Tang Ao eventually chose to reincarnate instead of possessing the body of someone else. After detecting no soul power ripples on the remains, Tang Ao began to search for clues in this snow cave. After Tang Ao cleared away some of the snow, a stone was revealed. There were some words on this stone, but because of the passage of time, it had become a bit blurry. If someone else found this stone, they would not be able to understand what was written on it. However, after Tang Ao read the words on the stone, Tang Ao's expression did not change much. Because on the stone, it was written, "My name is Li Ji, the 23rd generation disciple of the Carefree School. This time, I was ordered by my teacher to enter the Underworld Emperor's Secret Realm. During the trial, I accidentally entered the Underworld Emperor Mountain Range and found the Shinnong ruins. After the head disciple's investigation, he had determined that this ruin was an inheritance left behind by an astral-reaching realm warrior. Out of greed, the 5 of us entered the Shinnong ruins." The words on the stone stopped there, but Tang Ao was sure that there should be other information besides this. Although the image on the stone was blurry, every word could still be seen clearly. But now, there were no more words written here. It was likely that the stone he found was only half a piece, or the person had written the rest of the words on other stones. Thinking of this, Tang Ao continued to clear the snow. After Tang Ao cleared away some snow, he found another stone. Moreover, the fracture of this stone matched the fracture of the previous stone. Clearly, this was the same stone 10,000 years ago. After cleaning up the stone, Tang Ao continued to look at the contents of the stone. Although this stone was originally a complete piece with the previous one, the words on the stone couldn't be connected at all. This was because the words on the stone were, "Today is the 161 years and 72 days in the Shinong ruins. My life force is almost gone. With my peak strength of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, I can't even walk out of this snowfield. What a joke." Chapter 508. However, through this stone, Tang Ao also obtained some information. Firstly, this martial artist had been a pinnacle martial artist on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing when he was alive. Secondly, this pinnacle martial artist on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing had been trapped here for more than 100 years before his life force finally flowed away. Tang Ao had been in this snowfield for quite some time, but Tang Ao had yet to realize that his life force was flowing away. However, strange things happened frequently in this snowfield, so Tang Ao believed that his life force would definitely flow away. If Tang Ao encountered something that caused his life force to flow away while he was unprepared, Tang Ao would be caught off guard, but he would definitely not die. Now that Tang Ao was prepared, even if his life force flowed away, Tang Ao would not be too afraid. It was not just Tang Ao. As long as Dong Xianyi and the rest were prepared, they would be able to deal with situations where their life force flowed away. Under normal circumstances, a martial artist's lifespan was limited due to the shackles of their martial arts realm. After their lifespan was depleted, their life force would also flow away quickly. However, before their lifespan was depleted, a martial artist's life force would not flow away. Of course, there were some special circumstances. For example, if a martial artist was fatally injured and his life force was being sucked away by unorthodox methods, his life force would also disappear. Once his life force dissipated, a martial artist would definitely die even if his lifespan was not depleted. Once he was prepared, he could specifically awaken some life spirits that could replenish his life force. For example, the J-Bone life spirit in Tang Ao's body was the best choice. Therefore, Tang Ao was not too worried when he found out that his life force might flow away in the future. As this snow cave was too old, Tang Ao did not find anything other than these 2 stones in the snow cave. Tang Ao then placed the stones back in their original position and gathered the remains of the martial artist in a pile. Then, Tang Ao cast a soul calming spell on the remains and left. Although there was no soul power left on the pile of bones, the negative karma on the bones had not disappeared. This way, even if the owner of the bones escaped into reincarnation, he would not be able to reincarnate. Since Tang Ao saw the stone he left behind and learned some information about this snowfield, it could be said that he had received some kindness from him. Therefore, it was nothing for Tang Ao to eliminate the negative karma on his remains. After leaving the snow cave, Tang Ao quickly sensed the swarm again. However, Tang Ao was a little puzzled because the swarm had actually stopped. At this moment, Tang Ao's soul power could only detect things within 3 meters. And the reason why Tang Ao could sense that the swarm of ice insects had stopped was because Tang Ao had left a soul imprint on one of the ice insects. At this moment, the ice worm that Tang Ao had left a soul imprint on stopped. The ice insects had always moved in groups. Since this ice insect was here, the other ice insects had always stayed nearby. Could it be that these ice insects have reached their destination? Due to the delay in the snow cave, there was some distance between Tang Ao and the ice insects. Therefore, while Tang Ao rushed to the location of the ice worms, he secretly pondered. Chapter 509. This ice worm had always been Tang Ao's landmark. At this moment, under Tang Ao's perception, the other ice worms were completely gone. Therefore, Tang Ao could only heal the ice worm's injury. For Tang Ao, who had the J-Bone Life Soul, it was obviously not difficult to heal such an injury. A pale green light flashed in Tang Ao's palm, and then it wrapped the ice worm. Although it was overkill for Tang Ao to use the Jade-Bone Life Soul to heal the ice worm's injury, the ice worm's injury was indeed instantly healed by the Jade-Bone Life Soul. At the same time, Tang Ao understood that the ice worm, which looked like an ant, was indeed brainless. After Tang Ao helped it heal its injury, the ice worm did not respond and only knew how to rush forward. Tang Ao continued to follow the ice worm forward. After walking for a while, Tang Ao stopped. The ice worm's speed was too slow, and Tang Ao did not know the ice worm's destination, so he could only slowly follow behind the ice worm. Now Tang Ao planned to wait for the ice worm to go further before catching up. While waiting for the ice worm to rush forward, Tang Ao was constantly condensing his soul power. The reason why Tang Ao wanted to condense his soul power was that Tang Ao suddenly felt that the range of his soul power had increased not long ago. When Tang Ao first escaped into the depths of the snow, Tang Ao's soul power could only detect within a range of 3 meters in the snow. However, because Tang Ao's Jade-Bone Life Soul was continuously nourishing Tang Ao's soul power, after such a long time, Tang Ao found that his soul power could detect things within 3 meters around him. This discovery made Tang Ao very surprised. In the past, because Tang Ao's soul power was far superior to warriors of the same realm, Tang Ao could not condense his soul power. But now, Tang Ao deeply discovered that his soul power was insufficient. If Tang Ao's soul power was condensed enough, then Tang Ao's soul power wouldn't be suppressed to such an extent even if he was in the snow. Due to the snow and ice blocking one's line of sight, a martial artist's soul power perception was extremely important. If Tang Ao's soul power hadn't been suppressed, then Tang Ao would have been able to clearly sense everything in this snowy land. However, Tang Ao's current soul power was suppressed to only a radius of 3 feet around his body, so Tang Ao felt it was very inconvenient to travel underground. Now, Tang Ao discovered that as long as he continuously condensed the strength of his soul power, he could increase the range of his soul power's perception. Naturally, Tang Ao had to seize the time to increase the strength of his soul power and increase the range of his perception. In this snowy land, the spiritual power on the ground would constantly flow away. Moreover, there was also the snowstorm that warriors of the 5th floor of Linghai Jing would have to avoid, but the soul power underground would be suppressed. Even for martial artists with remarkable abilities, this kind of environment was very bad. If a normal person came here, they would probably be frozen to death immediately. Tang Ao flattened the snow around him, then sat cross-legged on the ground. After Tang Ao sat down, the ancient god moving sky technique was instantly activated, and he began to condense his soul power. Tang Ao was currently only at the 4th level of the spiritual sea realm, but the strength of Tang Ao's soul power was no less than a normal warrior of the 9th floor of Linghai Jing. Chapter 510. Under the influence of so many factors, Tang Ao's soul power had slowly surpassed that of martial artists of the same cultivation level. Now, it had even reached the level of suppressing martial artists of the same cultivation level. Back when Tang Ao and Bai Feng were fighting, the reason why Tang Ao could escape before Bai Zhenyuan arrived was that Tang Ao's soul power was much stronger than Bai Zhenyuan's. Before Bai Zhenyuan's soul power could detect Tang Ao had already discovered Bai Zhenyuan. Thus, Tang Ao had successfully escaped from Bai Zhenyuan's hands. However, in this snowfield, even if Tang Ao's soul power was comparable to that of a martial artist on the 9th floor of Linghai Jing, it was still suppressed to a radius of 10 meters around him. If it were any other martial artist, they would not be able to release their soul power at all. When Tang Ao circulated the ancient god moving heaven technique, to condense his soul power, Tang Ao discovered something else. Above the snowfield, the soul power in a martial artist body would be suppressed and slowly dissipate. Thus, Tang Ao had escaped underground. Furthermore, after Tang Ao had escaped underground for so long, other than discovering that the surrounding ice and snow was suppressing his soul power, Tang Ao did not notice anything else out of the ordinary. However, after Tang Ao started to condense his soul power underground, Tang Ao finally discovered something unusual about this underground ice and snow. On the surface of the snowfield, the soul power of a martial artist would be suppressed and continuously dissipate. Thus, martial artists would naturally choose to escape underground. However, this underground was not as simple as suppressing his soul power. After Tang Ao started to condense his soul power, he actually discovered that his soul power was also slowly dissipating. However, because the J-Bone Life Spirit had been constantly nourishing his soul, and the amount of soul power Tang Ao was losing was far less than the amount being nourished by the J-Bone Life Spirit, Tang Ao did not realize that his soul power was constantly dissipating. However, when Tang Ao was quietly condensing his life spirit, he still discovered this. In this way, this seemingly harmless snowfield was actually hiding a hidden danger. With this discovery, Tang Ao secretly sighed in his heart. After Tang Ao came to this snowfield, except for the strange ice worm, he did not find any other demon beasts. Compared to the underworld Emperor Mountain Range, which was filled with demonic beasts, this snowy plain could not be any safer. However, the truth was that this snowfield was filled with dangers that were hard to detect. On the ground, the spiritual energy within a martial artist's body would be suppressed and would constantly flow away. Beneath the ground, a martial artist's soul power would be suppressed and continuously depleted. After the spiritual power dissipates, the martial artist will become an ordinary person. In such a world of ice and snow, an ordinary person would be frozen into a popsicle in at most the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. After a martial artist's soul power dissipated, the martial artist would immediately die. Therefore, this seemingly safe snowfield was, in fact, filled with hidden dangers. It was extremely dangerous. Apart from these strange ice and snow, there were also strange ice worms that couldn't be detected by the naked eye or soul power. If not for the fact that Su Ning had given the heavenly polar eyes to Tang Ao before she fainted, Tang Ao would probably have fallen into the ice worm's trap. Regarding these strange ice worms, Tang Ao suddenly had a new idea. These ice worms couldn't be detected by the naked eye or soul power. Before Tang Ao used the heavenly polar eyes, he couldn't see these ice worms either. Moreover, these ice worms weren't weak at all. Previously, Tang Ao's mystic frost chi had been suppressed by these ice worms. Therefore, Tang Ao had the idea of breeding these ice worms. Chapter 511. In this way, it would be very easy for Tang Ao to fight enemies of a higher level. However, the ice worm also had many flaws. The ice worm moved very slowly and was easily fatigued. Tang Ao had been following the ice worm army for a long time, and the ice worm had to stop for a short rest every kilometer. The battles that Tang Ao encountered now were very fast-paced, and they were usually not fixed in one place. If the battle was carried out in mid-air from beginning to end, then these ice worms would be completely useless. In addition, these ice worms were too fragile. When Tang Ao fought with the enemy, these ice worms were also easily damaged by the aftermath of the battle. Therefore, it was not easy to use the ice worms in actual combat. However, due to the ice worms' stealth and lethality, Tang Ao still wanted to rear them. As long as Tang Ao could rear the ice worms, although there were still many problems to be solved against human warriors, if Tang Ao used the ice worms to deal with some monsters, the effect would be very amazing. Tang Ao's eyes were destroyed by the Golden Fong Snake Lord not long ago. This was an irreconcilable feud. Therefore, after Tang Ao obtained the Shinong grass in the Shinong ruins and cured Su Ning's poison, Tang Ao was bound to settle the score with the Golden Fong Snake Lord and the Silver Fong Snake. These ice worms were extremely useful against monsters like the Golden Fong Snake Lord and the Silver Fong Snake. Back when Tang Ao fought the Silver Fong Venomous Snake, the Silver Fong Venomous Snake had relied on the Purple Flame Dragon Armor Life Soul Projection from the 30th Firmament to engage in melee combat with Tang Ao. Furthermore, the Silver Fong Venomous Snake didn't seem to be good at flying, so it had been fighting Tang Ao on the ground. If he fought the Silver Fong Snake the next time, Tang Ao could use these ice worms to sneak attack and freeze the Silver Fong Snake to death. After Tang Ao sat cross-legged on the ground and condensed his soul power for a while, the ice worm had walked a distance even though it was slow. In fact, it wasn't that the ice worms were too slow. Although the ice worms looked like ants, they were definitely not slow. However, with the augmentation of the Battle Sagebone Life Soul, Tang Ao's speed was just too fast. The ice worm walked continuously for an hour, but Tang Ao arrived in less than 3 seconds with the help of the Battle Sagebone Life Soul's possession. The moment Tang Ao caught up with it, the ice worm actually stopped. Although this ice worm's intelligence was extremely low, it still had the thought of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. Tang Ao had been following it all the way, so the ice worm obviously knew. However, Tang Ao didn't hurt it along the way. Not long ago, he even healed its injuries. This ice worm's grade was too low, so it didn't have any intelligence. But when Tang Ao came over again, the ice worm walked in front of Tang Ao. Under Tang Ao's sky polar eyes, Tang Ao could feel that the ice worm seemed to be conveying some message to him. However, what made Tang Ao helpless was that he couldn't communicate with this ice worm using ordinary means. On the Black-Yellow continent, some monsters that had yet to transform or had lower grades couldn't speak human language, but human warriors could still carry out some simple communication with them through soul power. However, Tang Ao's soul power couldn't perceive the existence of these ice worms at all, so it was unrealistic for Tang Ao to use soul power to communicate with it. Although Tang Ao could see the ice worm with sky polar eyes now, Tang Ao couldn't use sky polar eyes to communicate with the ice worm, and Tang Ao wasn't sure if sky polar eyes had such an ability. Just as Tang Ao was in a dilemma, Tang Ao suddenly remembered that Tang Ao had subconsciously used the Jade Bone Life Soul to heal this ice worm not long ago. Chapter 512. After Tang Ao shrouded the ice bug with the Jade Bone Life Spirit, the ice bug's crisp voice reached Tang Ao's ears. "Human, help me heal. Our queen is in danger. I have to rush back to save her." Tang Ao originally thought that the intelligence of this ice bug was too low, so Tang Ao never thought of communicating with it. However, after Tang Ao heard the ice bug's words, Tang Ao understood that these ice bugs were not only extremely intelligent, but also more intelligent than many Origin Martial Realm and even Sea of Souls Realm beasts. At this moment, the ice bug was only trying to communicate with Tang Ao. Before Tang Ao, these ice bugs had met many human warriors. However, these human warriors could not find the ice bug, let alone communicate with it. However, because Tang Ao had the sky polar eyes, he could find the ice bug and accidentally found out that the life spirit could communicate with the ice bug. However, after Tang Ao used the Green Lotus Sword Soul to communicate with the ice bug, Tang Ao knew that only a special life spirit, like the Jade Bone Life Spirit, could fuse with the spirit power in the ice bug body, could communicate with the ice bug. Among the life spirits that Tang Ao knew, other than the Jade Bone Life Spirit, only Lu Ling Xuan's All Things Rejuvenation Life Spirit could do this. In the underground tunnel of the snowfield, Tang Ao quickly followed the ice bug's guidance. The ice bug stood on Tang Ao's shoulder and did not give directions to Tang Ao. Through a simple conversation with the ice bug, Tang Ao knew that these ice bugs were called ice ants. At this moment, the ice ant colony was in a hurry because the ice ant queen was in danger. Moreover, the location of the ant queen was not close. Therefore, even with Tang Ao's speed, he had not caught up with the ice ant army after traveling underground for so long. Furthermore, as Tang Ao traversed underground, the underground tunnels that he could freely pass through previously were gone. Therefore, Tang Ao summoned the battle Sage Bone Life Soul. While opening a path, he chased after the ice ant army. After walking for a while, Tang Ao finally arrived at his destination. This time, an army of tens of thousands of ice ants was attacking a frost blood snake from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao almost ran away. The individual strength of the ice ants didn't even reach the first level of the origin realm. However, the ice ants' cold ice aura was very strong, and in addition, there was an extremely large amount of ice ants. So, the ice ants and the 7th floor of Linghai Jing fought on equal grounds. However, Tang Ao could tell at a glance that this was only temporary. Because the ice ants were too small, the spirit power stored in their bodies could not even compare to a martial artist at the first level of the origin realm. After observing for a while, Tang Ao found out that each of the ice ants could only spit out the cold air for 5 breaths of time before the spirit power in their body was completely used up. Therefore, if it were not for the fact that there were too many of them, they would have already been killed by the frost blood snake. The ice ants could only spit out the cold air for 5 breaths of time, but the rest time was not that long. After spitting out the cold air for 5 breaths of time, they only needed to rest for 30 breaths of time before they could immediately rejoin the battle. Right now, Tang Ao was only at the 4th level of the Spirit Sea realm. If Tang Ao were to face the Frost Blood Snake alone, which was a beast from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, even if Tang Ao used all of his skills, Tang Ao would still not be able to beat the Frost Blood Snake. But right now, these ice ants were fighting on equal grounds with the Frost Blood Snake, which shocked Tang Ao. At the same time, Tang Ao was even more interested in the ice ants. Chapter 5:13. Tang Ao activated his sky polarity pupils and looked at the ball of light. He saw a slightly larger transparent ice ant in the ball of light, and the ball of light was coming from this ice ant. From the conversation between Tang Ao and the ice ant on his shoulder, Tang Ao understood that this ice ant was the offspring of this group of ice ants. The pale white light around the ant queen was a special enchantment protecting it. Not long ago, the ant queen had been attacked by the frost blood snake. Therefore, all the ice ants that were wandering around had immediately rushed back to deal with the frost blood snake on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. While the ice ants and the snake were fighting, Tang Ao's eyes landed on the ant queen. The ant queen's body was the size of a soybean, and there was a special defensive enchantment around it. Tang Ao's attention was not on the enchantment, but on the special aura that had gathered inside the enchantment. The more Tang Ao looked at this aura, the more shocked he was. If Tang Ao was not wrong, this aura was the legendary innate mixed Yuan Qi. Thinking of this, even Tang Ao was shocked. The innate mixed Yuan Qi was not within the 5 elements and was beyond the universe. Therefore, these ice ants that were born from the innate mixed Yuan Qi could not be seen with soul power or naked eyes. There were 6 strands of innate mixed Yuan Qi inside the enchantment, which meant that it was a rank 6 innate mixed Yuan Qi. According to Tang Ao's knowledge, the highest rank of innate mixed Yuan Qi was rank 9. However, the rank 9 innate mixed Yuan Qi was rarely mentioned even in the legends. Moreover, the rank 6 innate mixed Yuan Qi in front of him was already extremely precious. If Tang Ao could get his hands on these 6 strands of innate mixed Yuan Qi, then Tang Ao would be able to recover his peak astral reaching realm level 9 immediately. Moreover, there was a huge possibility that he could use this opportunity to reach a level that Tang Ao could not even reach in his previous life. However, Tang Ao hesitated for a while before deciding not to do so. This was because Tang Ao could see that the vitality of these ice ants was maintained by the Xiantian primordial qi. Once Tang Ao stole the Xiantian primordial qi, these ice ants would immediately die. Moreover, Tang Ao felt that since these ice ants were able to fight against the frost blood snake on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with a 4th-level Sea of Souls realm warrior like him. Therefore, if Tang Ao dared to attack the queen ant, Tang Ao felt that he would definitely die in front of the frost blood snake. Of course, if Tang Ao didn't intervene, it would be hard to say who would be the winner between the frost blood snake and the ice ants. However, since Tang Ao couldn't obtain the innate mixed yuan qi, he could only take a step back and gain some benefits from the frost blood snake. Although the ant queen was also nurtured by the connate immemorial qi, the frost blood snake was clearly not to be trifled with. Therefore, although the ant queen had the protection of the enchantment was also full of cracks. Tang Ao used his sky polar eyes to observe that the enchantment and the ant queen seemed to be one. Therefore, when the enchantment was damaged, the ant queen was also injured quite badly. On top of that, the ant queen still had to continuously use the 6 strands of innate mixed yuan qi to provide power to the ant colony. Right now, it was starting to be a bit overwhelmed. Therefore, Tang Ao waved his hand, and a light green light wrapped around the ant queen and the enchantment. This light green light was naturally Tang Ao's jade bone life spirit. Meanwhile, the ice ant on Tang Ao's shoulder had already walked into the enchantment of the ant queen and was talking to it. Chapter 514. After Tang Ao had used 30% of his spirit power, he had only managed to repair a few of the bigger cracks on the enchantment. On the enchantment of the queen, there were still countless cracks that looked like ice cracks. After Tang Ao had helped the queen fix the cracks on the enchantment, the queen had also expressed her gratitude to Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ao realized that the queen, as the leader of this ice colony, had a higher intelligence than the other ice ants, but she could not speak the human language. Then, the ice ant that Tang Ao had saved first said to Tang Ao, "In this ice colony, only I can talk to you. They can't understand what you're saying. Also, can you help us deal with that big bug?" As Tang Ao was watching the battle between the ice ant colony and the frost blood snake, the ice ant's crisp voice was heard in Tang Ao's head. After hearing the ice ant's words, Tang Ao could not help but be surprised. "Then how can you understand me?" Although this ice ant had some intelligence, it did not have any intelligence. Therefore, whatever Tang Ao asked, it answered, "Because there is a big sister in this ice field. She has been teaching me how to talk all these years. All right, I have not talked to her today. She must be angry." Tang Ao was slightly shocked after hearing the ice ant's words. She had been teaching this ice ant to talk all these years? What kind of concept was this? The Underworld Emperor space only opened once every 10,000 years. Before the Underworld Emperor's secret realm opened, even Tang Ao, who was a peak level 9 astral reaching realm martial artist in his previous life, could not enter the Underworld Emperor's secret realm. In this case, there were only 2 possibilities for the big sister the ice ant was talking about. Either this martial artist was a powerful martial artist whose power had surpassed the peak level 9 astral reaching realm, and before the Underworld Emperor's secret realm opened, they could use some special method to enter. Or this martial artist was a martial artist who had survived the Underworld Emperor's secret realm 10,000 years ago. This person had used some unknown method to survive in the Underworld Emperor's secret realm for 10,000 years. According to Tang Ao's investigations in his previous life, this Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm was rather special. When the Mystic Realm opened, a certain number of martial artists could enter. But as time passed, a few cultivators who weren't fated to receive the Netherworld Emperor's inheritance would be transported out. As for those who were qualified to inherit the Underworld Emperor's legacy, they could continue to train in the Underworld Emperor's Mystic Realm. But after a certain period of time, if no martial artist was able to inherit the Underworld Emperor's legacy, then once the time limit was up, all the martial artists would be sent out of the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm. Among the martial artists who participated in the Underworld Emperor Mystic Realm's trial 10,000 years ago, there was no lack of big shots in the future. And these proud sons of heaven did not have any means to stay in the underworld emperor mystic realm. Therefore, Tang Ao did not believe that the big sister that Iceworm was talking about was a warrior who had participated in the trial 10,000 years ago. However, if this person was not one of the warriors who participated in the trial 10,000 years ago, then this person must be in existence beyond the astral reaching realm. However, Tang Ao felt that this was even more impossible. When Tang Ao was at the peak of astral reaching realm in his previous life, he was already in almost invincible existence in the black-yellow continent. Moreover, Tang Ao had never heard of a martial artist who had surpassed the astral reaching realm in the mysterious fantasy continent. Unable to figure out, Tang Ao asked the ice ant directly, Ice ant, do you have a name? Tang Ao felt that there were 36,000 ice ants here. If he kept calling an ice ant, then the other ice ants would also learn to talk in the future, and then he wouldn't know who to call. Therefore, Tang Ao asked if this ice ant had a name. If not, then Tang Ao would give it one. Chapter 5:15. My name is Bing Xian. What's your name? After the ice ant said his name, he asked for Tang Ao's name. Hearing the ice ant's question, Tang Ao felt that this ice ant was very intelligent. Therefore, Tang Ao said, I'm Tang Ao. In this snowfield, you just need to follow me. After introducing himself, Tang Ao hurriedly asked, All right, Bing Xian, what kind of person is the big sister that taught you to speak? Of course, she's a big beauty. Big sister is very beautiful. After Bing Xian transforms, she will also become big sister. Tang Ao didn't think that this ice ant could actually be infatuated in front of a great enemy. Wait, you said you could transform? Tang Ao was shocked after hearing Bing Xian's words. Bing Xian was born from the innate immemorial qi and was not within the 5 elements, jumping out of the universe. In this way, even after Bing Xian transforms, no one can see her. And in Tang Ao's opinion, a special creature like Bing Xian shouldn't be able to transform. Yes, as long as I reach the Sea of Souls realm, I can transform. Regarding Tang Ao's question, Bing Xian answered with certainty. Then what is your cultivation now? This ice ant was too special. Tang Ao's soul power couldn't perceive the ice ant's existence at all. Therefore, Tang Ao naturally couldn't use his soul power to detect the ice ant's cultivation. And although Tang Ao could use sky polar pupils to see the ice ant, Tang Ao hadn't learned how to use sky polar pupils to detect the other's cultivation. Because Tang Ao had the hidden jade and stone body, it was already very difficult for a post-celestial warrior to use sky polar pupils. Although Tang Ao could use sky polar pupils to exert power that Su Ning couldn't, Su Ning was the owner of sky polar pupils. Su Ning was bound to be more flexible than Tang Ao when using sky polar pupils. And right now, Su Ning's cultivation was too low, so most of the abilities of sky polar pupils couldn't be used. But in the future, when Su Ning grew to Tang Ao's current level, when Su Ning used sky polar pupils, the power of sky polar pupils would definitely be more terrifying than when it was in Tang Ao's hands. Tang Ao could use sky polar pupils to barely crush opponents who were 1 level higher. But if Su Ning reached Tang Ao's current strength, even if she fought with the Frost Blood Snake, Su Ning might not be at a disadvantage. Different from Tang Ao's hidden jade and body, Sky. The hidden jade body, Sky, Su was. Polar Tang Ao, Tang body Sky Ao's. Sky Ao, Su was Tang the Su, Ao is Tian, Tang was hidden, Su, Tang is Sien. Tang is Tian Thon Ao Sien. Therefore, it would increase Tang Ao's strength in all aspects. And different from the hidden jade and body, sky polar pupils only increased the warrior's attacking power. In Tang Ao's previous life, he had seen a blurry video. It was a video of a warrior with sky polar pupils using sky polar pupils to fight against enemies. In that video, that warrior with sky polar pupils, with his astral reaching realm level 7 power, was able to fight against 3 peak level 9 astral reaching realm warriors without being at a disadvantage. Because that video was not complete, Tang Ao didn't know what happened after that. But in Tang Ao's opinion, that warrior with sky polar pupils had most likely fallen. Chapter 516. Of course, if it were not a life and death situation, Tang Ao would definitely not do this. Even if he encountered an extremely dangerous situation, Tang Ao would probably not fight like this. Tang Ao was the reincarnation of an astral-reaching realm warrior, so he had an extremely precious training experience. Even if Tang Ao was not the opponent's opponent in a short period of time, Tang Ao could use the hidden jade and stone body and the experience from his previous life to surpass his opponent in a short period of time and take his revenge. As for Tang Ao's question, Bing Xian's answer directly shocked Tang Ao. I am now a rank 1 ice ant, which is equivalent to the 9th level of the body refining realm. According to Sister Bing Tong, I will be able to reach the sea of Soul's realm soon. Sister Bing Tong, after I transform, I will also be a little beauty. When Bing Xian said this, she was still a bit proud. However, Tang Ao was secretly thinking that it would be useless for Bing Xian to transform into a beauty. Besides warriors with the sky polar eyes, no one else could see her. And the scarcity of warriors with the sky polar eyes was not any less than Tang Ao's hidden jade and stone body. Tang Ao had lived 2 lives, so he only knew that he had the hidden jade and stone body. In this life, Tang Ao's power was still relatively low. Therefore, Tang Ao had not traveled to many places. However, in his previous life, Tang Ao had traveled half of the black-yellow continent, but Tang Ao had not found or heard of anyone with the hidden jade and stone body. After seeing the sad expression on Tang Ao's face, Bing Xian said a bit angrily, "Do you not believe that I will become a little beauty after I transform? Sister Bing Tong told me this. She is so nice, she would never lie to me." Tang Ao did not expect that Bing Xian would be so looking forward to his transformation or so persistent. However, Tang Ao still could not help but ask, "You are a creature born from the natural, mixed yuan qi. You are not in the formless world, and you are beyond the universe. Therefore, the eyes and soul power cannot sense your existence. Therefore, no one can see you after you transform." Although Bing Xuan's spiritual wisdom wasn't low, compared to Tang Ao, Bing Xian was just like a child learning how to speak. Therefore, Tang Ao's 2 or 3 sentences were enough to make Bing Xian confused. But you and Sister Bing Tong can see me. Can the others not see me? No wonder they ignored me when I talked to them. Bing Tong could see it? Through his conversation with Xian, Ao, and Bing Xian, and Bing Xian, Bing Xian, Bing Xian, Bing Xian, Bing Xian, and Ao had and Bing Xian. Bing Xian, and Bing Xian, and 1, Xian, and Xian. And was, and had been, and had. Bing Tong had existed before Bing Xian was born, so it was very likely that Bing Tong was a warrior from the Underworld King's secret realm 10,000 years ago. Bing Tong had used some kind of heaven-defying method to avoid the Underworld King's secret realm's teleportation and stay in this ice field. At this moment, Tang Ao did not know much about Bing Tong. He only knew that Bing Tong was a warrior from 10,000 years ago. Other than that, Tang Ao knew nothing. Tang Ao learned more about Bing Tong. Bing Tong should have a special constitution similar to Sky Polar Eye. Otherwise, Bing Tong would not be able to see the existence of the ice ant. Chapter 517. Tang Ao had been in this ice field for so long, but he still had no idea how to leave. However, Bing Tong had stayed in this ice field for such a long time, so she would definitely find something. Even if Bing Tong could not find a way out, Tang Ao only needed to get some information from her, which would be better than Tang Ao not knowing anything. However, before meeting Bing Tong, Tang Ao still had to be prepared. In Tang Ao's opinion, Bing Tong should not be a warrior beyond the Sea of Souls realm. In this snow field, the natural energies were extremely thin. In such a thin natural energies, it was already very difficult for warriors to ensure that they would not slip in their cultivation. Now, it would be wishful thinking to make a breakthrough in such an environment. Therefore, Tang Ao speculated that Bing Tong's strength was most likely between the 5th floor of Linghai Jing and the 6th floor. Bing Tong could see Bing Xian, which meant that she had a special constitution that was not inferior to the sky polar eyes. Although Tang Ao had the hidden jade body in stone, Tang Ao knew very little about other special constitutions. Therefore, Tang Ao also speculated that Bing Tong had the sky polar eyes constitution. With these speculations, the general information about Bing Tong was completely clear. Bing Tong was most likely a warrior who entered the underworld Emperor's secret realm 10,000 years ago. Her current strength was estimated to be on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing, and she had a special constitution similar to the sky polar eyes. Of course, it was also very likely that Bing Tong had the sky polar eyes. Tang Ao seemed to be chatting with Bing Xian, but in reality, Tang Ao had been secretly enveloping the frost blood snake with his soul power. The frost blood snake was a demonic beast from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Although Tang Ao had some tricks up his sleeves, facing such an existence, Tang Ao did not dare to be presumptuous. The golden two-snake lore that destroyed Tang Ao's eyes was only at the 6th level of the Sea of Souls realm. But this frost blood snake was a demonic beast from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Therefore, even if Tang Ao wanted to help, he had to be cautious. Under the attack of these ice ants, the frost blood snake did not have the ability to attack Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao still decided to observe carefully before making a move. Snake-type monsters were sinister and cunning. Not long ago, Tang Ao had suffered at the hands of the golden-toothed snake monarch. As such, Tang Ao wanted to wait for the right opportunity to attack. He wanted to deal a heavy blow to the frigid blood snake. Although Tang Ao had many means at the moment, be it the Battle Sagebone Life Soul, the Green Lotus Sword Soul, the 7 Kills Divine Tao, or the Sunshot Divine Bow, all of them had astonishing lethality. If Tang Ao wanted to deal with the frost blood snake on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao's means were still lacking. Although Tang Ao could use the Moro Bone Dagger to launch a sneak attack on the frost blood snake, Tang Ao decided not to do so after some consideration. Although the Moro Bone Dagger was not ordinary, its attack speed was not very fast. As for the monster on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, its senses were definitely strong enough to avoid the Moro Bone Dagger's sneak attack. Furthermore, it was easier for Tang Ao's Moro Bone Dagger Life Soul to deal with warriors of the same level or sneak attacks on high-level warriors. However, against a demon beast like the Frost Blood Snake that exceeded Tang Ao's realm by 3 levels, the Moro Bone Dagger's effects wouldn't be that strong. Moreover, Tang Ao was worried that the Moro Bone Dagger would be shattered by the Frost Blood Snake if it missed. A martial artist's fate soul was closely connected to a martial artist's divine soul and physique. If Tang Ao's fate soul was shattered, Tang Ao's body would also suffer varying degrees of injuries. In such a complex and dangerous place like the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm, once one was injured, they would fall into a dangerous situation. Therefore, after Tang Ao weighed the pros and cons, Tang Ao decided to use the Mystic Frost Chi and the Heavenly Polar Eyes to deal with the Frost Blood Snake. Up until now, Tang Ao had not understood how to use the Heavenly Polar Eyes to enhance the Mystic Frost Chi. Otherwise, when the Ice Ants and the Frost Blood Snake fought, Tang Ao only needed to strengthen the Ice Ants' attacks from the back, and the Frost Blood Snake would definitely not be a match for the Ice Ants. Chapter 518. With a flash of blue light, Tang Ao's eyes turned into snow patterns again. The sky-piercing divine eyes wasn't Tang Ao's strongest attack yet, but its attack range was extremely impressive. Although Tang Ao's Sunshot Divine Bow could also attack the Frost Blood Snake from afar, it was still not enough to deal with an existence like the frost blood snake. Even though the Sunshot Divine Bow was called a divine bow, Tang Ao still had a preference for a divine weapon like the bow and arrow. Hence, once the Netherworld Emperor Mystic Realm trial was over, Tang Ao would specially look for a suitable bow and arrow to use as a weapon. The battle between the ice ants and the frost blood snake was a process of continuous consumption. The ice ant's power came from the 6 streams of innate immemorial chi in the queen's enchantment. Thus, although the ice ants had used up their spiritual power several times, they were quickly replenished. On the other hand, although the frost blood snake on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing was strong, it couldn't continuously replenish its spiritual power like the ice ants. Thus, the frost blood snake had already used up 50% of its spiritual power. Although the frost blood snake was strong, it didn't seem to have high intelligence. Thus, it didn't think about gradually defeating the ice ants. Instead, it kept on fighting them. Tang Ao originally wanted to kill the frost blood snake, but after seeing that it had low intelligence, Tang Ao had a new idea. That was, Tang Ao wanted to tame the frost blood snake on the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. The frost blood snake was only as tall as Tang Ao when it stood up, but Tang Ao knew that this was the appearance of the frost blood snake after it transformed. Normally, some demon beasts with noble bloodlines and extremely high talent would have the ability to transform into heaven and earth when they reached the spirit sea realm. Although heaven and earth sounded very mysterious, it was actually the ability to change one's body shape. In this snowy plain, the spiritual power of heaven and earth was extremely thin. Thus, if the frost blood snake wanted to maintain its original body shape, it would definitely consume a lot of spiritual power. Therefore, in order to conserve its spiritual power, the frost blood snake deliberately transformed its body into this form. Unlike the ice ants, the frost blood snakes could be seen with the naked eye and soul power. The frost blood snake's body seemed to have been pieced together by pieces of ice, and it was crystal clear. There was also a sharp horn on the frost blood snake's head. Clearly, it was quite lethal. Furthermore, the frost blood snake had fought against over 30,000 ice ants on its own for so long, without falling into a disadvantageous position, which was a testament to the purity of its spiritual power. However, although the frost blood snake's combat strength was extraordinary, its intelligence was very low. Although Tang Ao didn't know how the frost blood snake could see the ice ants, Tang Ao was sure that the frost blood snake could see the ice ants or sense them. Otherwise, the frost blood snake wouldn't have been able to dodge the ice ants' attacks. Since the frost blood snake could see the ice ants, as long as it defeated the ice ants one by one, it would be able to attack the queen ant. However, the frost blood snake didn't have such a thought. It only spat out a mouthful of cold air, as if it wanted to compete with the ice ants. The ice ants and the frost blood snake were both ice-type creatures, so the cold air they spat out was unable to injure the other. The frost blood snake spat out another mouthful of cold air, freezing the ice ants in front of it into ice sculptures. Chapter 519. The frost blood snake was instantly frozen into a huge ice sculpture by the ice ants. Tang Ao watched the battle from the side without any intention of intervening. When the sandpiper and the clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. Tang Ao clearly wanted to be the fisherman this time. Whether it was the mysterious ice ants or the frost blood snake from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, Tang Ao was very tempted. When Tang Ao killed by Shan, the black rock earthly dragon from the 7th floor of Linghai Jing could severely injure Tang Ao with one blow. This frost blood snake was as powerful as the black rock earthly dragon. Therefore, as long as Tang Ao could subdue this frost blood snake, it would become a great help to Tang Ao. Through the battle between the frost blood snake and the ice ant swarm, Tang Ao also discovered a special characteristic of the ice ant swarm. The ice ant swarm could only be continuously supplied with spirit force by the queen within a certain distance. When these ice ants fought with Tang Ao, They were not a match for Tang Ao because the distance between the ice ants and the queen ant was too far. When Tang Ao saw that this group of ice ants could actually fight on par with this frost blood snake that was at the 7th level of the Seas of Soul's realm, he could not help but feel a bit scared. If it wasn't for the fact that the ice ants were too far away from the queen ant, Tang Ao would not have been the one frozen into an ice sculpture. With a few crisp cracking sounds, the frost spat out by the ice ants on the frost blood snake was shattered by the frost blood snake. Under the gaze of Tang Ao's sky polar eyes, the frost blood snake even absorbed some of the ice ants spat out. The frost blood snake's cold air could freeze the ice ants for a breath of time, and the ice ants' cold air could probably freeze the frost blood snake for less than 2 breaths of time. From the cold air that the ice ants spat out, Tang Ao could see that because the ice ants were very close to the queen ant, the quality of their cold air had also increased. Not long ago, Tang Ao had sparred with these ice ants, but the cold air that the ice ants spat out was not this strong. At most, it was about the same as the cold air that the frost blood snake spat out. Seeing this, Tang Ao was a little troubled. Originally, Tang Ao only wanted to raise some ice ants as helpers, but now it seemed that these ice ants would immediately become trash after leaving the queen ant. Therefore, if Tang Ao wanted to borrow the power of the ice ants in battle, he would have to take all of them away. Although Tang Ao believed that his ability to fool others wasn't weak, the ice ant queen also had a high level of intelligence. Wanting to fool this group of ice ants to be his free fighters was obviously not an easy task. Although this group of ice ants and the frost blood snake had been fighting for an hour, the frost blood snake should have used up most of its spiritual power by now, right? This group of ice ants and the frost blood snake have been fighting for an hour. The frost blood snake should have used up most of its spiritual power by now, right? Tang Ao was now ready to attack the frost blood snake. With Tang Ao's current ability, it would only take him 5 breaths of time to form a spiritual beast contract with a frost blood snake. The frost ant's frost chi could freeze the frost blood snake for nearly 2 breaths of time, and Tang Ao's profound frost chi and sky polarity eyes, combined with the frost ant's frost chi, should be able to freeze the frost blood snake for 5 breaths of time. Chapter 520. As long as Tang Ao could successfully form a spirit beast contract with the frost blood snake, even if Tang Ao couldn't get the powerful help of the ice ants, Tang Ao would still have a very powerful helper. With the frost blood snake's strength at the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, as long as Tang Ao obtained the frost blood snake, Tang Ao could basically do whatever he wanted in the Underworld Emperor's mystic realm. Among the people who entered the Underworld Emperor's mystic realm this time, the strongest martial artist that Tang Ao met so far was Bai Zhanyuan from the Bai family of the Primordial Era. Although Tang Ao hadn't fought with Bai Zhanyuan before, Bai Zhanyuan's cultivation was only at the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. Even if there was a genius that cultivated faster than Bai Zhanyuan, Tang Ao believed that it was impossible for that person to cultivate to the 7th floor of Linghai Jing. Therefore, with the protection of the frost blood snake, Tang Ao would really be unobstructed in the Underworld Emperor's mystic realm. Of course, the prerequisite was that Tang Ao could successfully form a spirit beast contract with the frost blood snake. Otherwise, everything would just be empty talk. Sister Bingxian, do you know about spirit beast contract? Spirit beast contract? You want to form a spirit beast contract with me? Can I really? Tang Ao never thought that Bingxian would be so enthusiastic about spirit beast contract. However, Tang Ao had no intention of forming a spirit beast contract with her at all. Bingxian, this spirit beast contract can't be formed casually, so I can't form a spirit beast contract with you yet. Is that so? But Sister Bingtong said that as long as I can form a spirit beast contract with a human martial artist, I can steal the martial artist's spirit power to speed up my growth. What a pity. Tang Ao was speechless after hearing Bingxuan's words. After a martial artist formed a spirit beast contract with a spirit beast, the contracted spirit beast would be able to receive some spirit power from the martial artist. However, this kind of feedback was complimentary. If the martial artist was much stronger than the martial artist, then the martial artist's spirit power would continuously feed the contracted spirit beast. On the other hand, if the contracted spirit beast was much stronger than the martial artist, then the spirit power of the contracted spirit beast would continuously feed the contracted spirit beast. Tang Ao and Tang He had formed a spirit beast contract, and Tang was at the 5th level of the Sea of Souls realm right now. Therefore, her spirit power was constantly being fed back to Tang Ao. However, Tang He was too lazy and did not cultivate normally. So Ao Tang would not feed the spirit power of the spirit power her. Ever since they entered the underworld Emperor mountain range, Tang Ao hadn't felt any spiritual energy from Tang He's body. This meant that Tang He didn't cultivate at all when he wasn't by her side. Since entering the underworld Emperor mountain range, Tang Ao had not felt any spirit power from Tang He. This meant that Tang He did not cultivate at all when he was not by her side. Bingxian was only at the 9th stage of the body, refining realm. If Tang Ao formed a spirit beast contract with Bingxian, he would have to constantly give Bingxian some of his spirit power during cultivation. However, Tang Ao had also seen the fighting style of the ice ants. Although the ice ant's cold air was powerful, each ice ant could only spit it for 5 breaths of time. Moreover, the cold air spat by an ice ant was not very useful. The ice ants had to be of a certain scale for the cold air to burst out with terrifying lethality. Although Tang Ao's spirit power was very strong, facing the densely packed ice ants, Tang Ao did not think that his spirit power could form a spirit beast contract with all the ice ants. Chapter 5:21. Although in this life, Tang Ao was confident that he would be able to surpass what he had achieved in his previous life, Tang Ao was not sure if he would be able to make this many contracts after reaching the astral reaching realm. Compared to the astral reaching realm warriors who were further away, Tang Ao turned his attention to the frost blood snake. After battling with the frost blood snake for so long, Tang Ao's chance had finally arrived. As the ice ants bombarded the frost blood snake from all directions with their breaths, the frost blood snake was once again frozen by the ice ants due to a moment of carelessness. After the frost blood snake was frozen by the frost ants, Tang Ao seized the opportunity and rushed forward. All of Tang Ao's spirit power was activated, and 2 beams of frost chi accurately landed on the frost blood snake. The frost blood snake was already frozen by the ice ants, and with the addition of Tang Ao's 2 streams of profound frost chi, the frost blood snake situation became even worse. Tang Ao had only used 10% of his spirit power for these 2 beams of frost chi. As a bright blue light flashed in Tang Ao's eyes, the frost blood snake's spirit power had been completely used up. The spiritual power in Tang Ao's body was instantly consumed, and a deep blue ice crystal array appeared where the frost blood snake was standing. After the ice crystal magic formation appeared, countless tiny blue ice crystals appeared around the frost blood snake. These tiny ice crystals continued to absorb the ice yuan power around them and landed on the frost blood snake's body layer by layer. In order to use this ice crystal formation, Tang Ao had used up 90% of his spirit power. Right then, Tang Ao still had the last bit of spirit power left in his body, which was enough for Tang Ao to make a contract with the frost blood snake. Therefore, after Tang Ao completely controlled the glacial blood snake, he immediately made a cut on his palm. At the same time, he separated a strand of his soul power and used his blood essence and soul power to carve a spirit beast contract formation on his right palm. Afterwards, Tang Ao pressed his right palm towards the glacial blood snake without any hesitation. The frozen frost blood snake clearly understood Tang Ao's intentions, so it suddenly began to struggle violently. However, it was obviously impossible for the frost blood snake to break free from the frost ant swarm, the profound frost chi, and the sky polar pupil's 3 layers of frost chi. Therefore, Tang Ao slapped his right palm on the frost blood snake's head without any danger, and a bright red light flashed. The The runes of the contract formation also appeared in the frost blood snake's dull eyes. When the frost blood snake finally broke out of the ice, the contract between Tang Ao and the frost blood snake was successfully formed. After forming a spirit beast contract with Tang Ao, the frost blood snake suddenly let out an angry roar at Tang Ao. Right now, Tang Ao was only at the 4th level of the spirit sea realm. After forming a spirit beast contract with Tang Ao, a part of the frost blood snake's spirit power naturally flowed into Tang Ao's body. With the powerful spirit power from the frost blood snake, Tang Ao's cultivation instantly reached the peak of the 4th level of the spirit sea realm. With the right opportunity, Tang Ao would immediately become a warrior on the 5th floor of Linghai Jing. However, after a part of the frost blood snake's spirit power flowed out, the frost blood snake instantly lost its cool. Just now, the frost blood snake was still fighting with the ice ants, but now, it suddenly rushed towards Tang Ao. It obviously wanted to kill Tang Ao, the thief who had stolen its spirit power. Chapter 522. Apart from that, the frost blood snake shadow was naturally within it as well. Tang Ao instantly suppressed the frost blood snake's shadow. While Tang Ao suppressed the frost blood snake's shadow, the ferocious frost blood snake suddenly stopped moving. This bloodline shadow was a method used by martial artists to control contracted spiritual beasts. After the frost blood snake stopped moving, its soul also entered Tang Ao's life spirit space. In Tang Ao's life spirit space, the frost blood snake's soul fiercely charged towards Tang Ao as soon as it saw him, as if it wanted to crush Tang Ao's soul. The frost blood snake was extremely resentful towards Tang Ao now. Originally, it lived freely in this snowfield, but now that Tang Ao had signed a spiritual beast contract with it, the frost blood snake was bound to Tang Ao. "How dare you?" Tang Ao shouted at the frost blood snake as it charged towards him. However, the frost blood snake was obviously extremely resentful towards Tang Ao at the moment. In addition, the frost blood snake's intelligence was extremely low. It only knew that it was currently bound by Tang Ao, but it didn't know that if anything happened to Tang Ao, it would also be in trouble. Therefore, the frost blood snake only wanted to kill Tang Ao, the person who bound it. However, the frost blood snake didn't know that after it had signed a spiritual beast contract with Tang Ao, the frost blood snake would definitely not be able to hurt Tang Ao under normal circumstances. As the frost blood snake charged towards Tang Ao waved his hand, and instantly dozens of iron chains appeared out of thin air, completely binding the frost blood snake. However, after being bound by Tang Ao's soul-seeking skill, the frost blood snake continued to struggle. However, this was Tang Ao's life spirit space, where Tang Ao was the master. No matter how powerful the frost blood snake was, it was still no match for Tang Ao. Tang Ao slowly walked toward the frost blood snake after locking it down with the myriad ghosts seeking souls. Tang Ao walked in front of the frost blood snake and said emotionlessly, "Either submit or die." Of course, the frost blood snake's intelligence was too low, so Tang Ao wasn't sure if it could understand his threat. However, even if the frost blood snake refused to submit, Tang Ao naturally could not really kill it. After Tang Ao and the frost blood snake formed a spiritual beast contract, the frost blood snake had to submit to Tang Ao. It all depended on whether the frost blood snake submitted voluntarily or was forced to submit. If the frost blood snake voluntarily submitted to Tang Ao, then Tang Ao could let it move freely, and the frost blood snake could also become a great help to Tang Ao, handling many things for Tang Ao. If the frost blood snake was forced to submit to Tang Ao, then Tang Ao could only control the frost blood snake to do things himself. This way, not only would it be inefficient, but it would also consume a lot of Tang Ao's soul power. Once Tang Ao's soul power weakened, the frost blood snake could immediately destroy the spiritual beast contract between him and Tang Ao. It was unknown if the frost blood snake didn't understand Tang Ao's threat, or if it didn't care at all. Despite being bound by Tang Ao's soul-seeking skill, the frost blood snake continued to roar at Tang Ao. Tang Ao looked at the struggling frost blood snake and muttered to himself, "This frost blood snake's intelligence is too low. It can't understand me." Chapter 5:23. Seeing the frost blood snake's reaction, Tang Ao knew that he was on the right track. The frost blood snake's intelligence was too low, so it couldn't understand what Tang Ao was trying to say. In order to tame such a powerful beast, one had to use such a simple and violent method. The frost blood snake, which had been extremely agitated earlier, was now trembling in fear under the pressure of the six-light mirror. Tang Ao also took this opportunity to communicate with the frost blood snake using his soul power. Due to some innate reasons, many beasts' intelligence would develop very slowly during their growth. Therefore, even though the frost blood snake had grown to the 7th floor of Linghai Jing, it still couldn't understand Tang Ao's words. Although the frost blood snake couldn't understand human language, it could communicate with it using its soul power. Therefore, Tang Ao used his soul power to communicate with the frost blood snake. "I am the reincarnation of the demon lord. Follow me, and I will live forever, and so will you." After saying that, Tang Ao showed the frost blood snake the scene of Tang He, transforming into a dragon in his memories. To snake-type beasts, the greatest temptation was to transform into a serpent or a dragon. The frost blood snake was an ancient species. As long as there was a stalk of dragon transformation grass, the frost blood snake could transform into a dragon. Indeed, after seeing the scene of Tang He's evolution, the frost blood snake suddenly sent a message to Tang Ao that it wanted the dragon grass. Tang Ao shook his head. "I don't have the dragon grass anymore, but I promise that you'll become a dragon within 3 years." After saying that, Tang Ao completely removed the six-light mirror's pressure from the frost blood snake's body. After Tang Ao withdrew the six-light mirror's pressure, the frost blood snake still looked at Tang Ao with lingering fear. After withdrawing the pressure, Tang Ao waved his hand and put away the 10,000 ghosts seeking souls. After that, he put the frost blood snake's soul back into its body. After the frost blood snake's soul returned to its body, the frost blood snake realized that when its soul entered Tang Ao's life spirit space, the ice ants had actually sealed it in 3 layers of ice. Moreover, all the ice ants surrounded Tang Ao and stared at the frost blood snake. When Tang Ao opened his eyes, he also saw this scene, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Then Tang Ao said to Bing Xian, "I've already signed a contract with this frost blood snake. It won't hurt you anymore. Tell your partner." Although Tang Ao could use the Jade Bone Vitality Life Soul to communicate with the ice ants, Tang Ao gave up the idea when he saw the dense horde of ice ants. Fortunately, Bing Xian could understand Tang Ao's words, so Bing Xian quickly conveyed Tang Ao's words to the ice ants. After Tang Ao signed a contract with the frost blood snake, Tang Ao received an extremely pure spirit power from the frost blood snake. With this spirit power, Tang Ao's strength reached the peak of the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm. At the same time that Tang Ao's cultivation base increased, Tang Ao's heavenly polarity eyes also comprehended another ability. At this moment, a deep blue light appeared in Tang Ao's eyes, and a thick layer of ice covering the frost blood snake was slowly peeled off under Tang Ao's sky polar eyes. At first, he only peeled off some ice shards, but later, Tang Ao's eyes focused, and the layer of ice covering the frost blood snake was completely peeled off by Tang Ao. After Tang Ao released the frost blood snake, it didn't attack Tang Ao and the ice ants anymore. It just stood there, not knowing what to do. Tang Ao was very interested in the ice eyes that Bing Xian mentioned, but Tang Ao had used up too much energy, so Tang Ao wouldn't choose to spy on an old monster that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Chapter 5:24. Tang Ao had been in this ice field for a long time, but he only knew that this ice field was probably the second test mentioned on the stone tablet in front of the Shinong ruins. However, Tang Ao had no idea how to pass this test. Furthermore, Tang Ao was not very familiar with this ice field. Therefore, Tang Ao really had no idea how to pass the second test of the Shinong ruins. At this moment, Tang Ao was sitting cross-legged in the ice ant camp, and the ice ants had also returned to their normal lives. Those who needed to find food found food, and those who needed to build nests built nests. During the battle between the ice ants and the frost blood snake, the ice ants' nests were also damaged. Therefore, the ice ants were still busy with the repair work, but the frost blood snake that had formed a spirit beast contract with Tang Ao was not here at the moment. This was because Tang Ao did not need the frost blood snake's help. So Tang Ao let the frost blood snake move freely. Although the frost blood snake had low intelligence, for some reason, it was extremely eager for freedom. Therefore, after Tang Ao allowed it to move freely, the frost blood snake whistled and left the area. Although Tang Ao's soul power's range of detection had increased, it was only able to reach a range of 300 feet. The frost blood snake was obviously not within 300 feet of Tang Ao at the moment, so Tang Ao did not know where the frost blood snake was. However, if Tang Ao needed the frost blood snake's help, he could directly communicate with the frost blood snake's soul imprint in his life soul space to summon it. Bing Xian? Where is Sister Bing Tong that you mentioned? Although the ice ant's intelligence was much higher than the frost blood snake's, they did not understand the ways of the world at all, and they were not scheming at all. No matter what Tang Ao asked, as long as Bing Xian knew, she would tell Tang Ao everything in detail. Sister Bing Tong is very far from here. It will take me half a day to get there. Bing Xian tilted her head and said to Tang Ao. After listening to Bing Xian's words, Tang Ao thought to himself. Bing Xian's walking speed was too slow, so it would take Bing Xian half a day to get there. For Tang Ao, it would take him at most 30 breaths, which meant that Bing Tong was not too far away from here. Are you going to look for Bing Tong later? Yes. I have to talk to Sister Bing Tong every day. Where is Sister Bing Tong alone? She must be lonely. From Bing Xian's words, Tang Ao learned some more information. Where Bing Tong was alone. Did it mean that Bing Tong was trapped by some kind of restriction or formation, and that Bing Tong could not escape? As he thought about this, Tang Ao was delighted. Right now, Tang Ao did not know whether Bing Tong was a friend or a foe. Although Tang Ao would not actively harm Bing Tong had lived in this snowfield for tens of thousands of years. Tang Ao was not sure what level Bing Tong's cultivation had reached. The concentration of the heaven and earth yuan power in this snowfield was extremely low, so Tang Ao speculated that even if Bing Tong had lived in the snowfield for tens of thousands of years, Bing Tong's cultivation would not be too high. However, Tang Ao also understood that nothing was absolute. If Bing Tong wanted to live in this snowfield for tens of thousands of years, it would be impossible for her to do so if her cultivation was too low. However, Tang Ao also understood that nothing was absolute. If Bing Tong wanted to live in this snowfield for tens of thousands of years, it would be impossible for her to do so if her cultivation was too low. Chapter 525. However, ever since Su Ning had transferred the sky polar eyes to Tang Ao could not even remember how many times he had used the sky polar eyes until his spiritual power was below 30%. Tang Ao had also vaguely discovered that the sky polar eyes was different from his hidden jade body. The hidden jade body could provide assistance to the martial artist cultivation from the very beginning, allowing the martial artist with the hidden jade body to win at the starting line. However, the special constitution like the sky polar eyes was only useful in the later stages. In the beginning, because the user's cultivation was low, the power of the sky polar eyes could not be used to its full potential. However, in the middle and late stages, the sky polar eyes would become more and more horrifying. Tang Ao could even imagine that if he was at the astral-reaching level 9 martial artist back then, he could even use the sky polar eyes to refine this special snow field. Thinking of this, Tang Ao looked forward to Su Ning's growth even more. Tang Ao was only a postnatal user of the sky polar eyes, although Tang Ao could also use the sky polar eyes because of the hidden jade body. However, a postnatal user like Tang Ao would definitely not be able to compete with a postnatal user like Su Ning. Thinking of Su Ning, Tang Ao felt that time was running out. He had to leave the snow field as soon as possible and get the Shinnong grass from the Shinnong ruins to cure Su Ning's poison. After sitting cross-legged for half an hour, Tang Ao's consumed spiritual power had almost recovered. Although Tang Ao wanted this group of ice ants to help him, the ice ants were currently busy building their nest. He didn't even know where the ant queen was. Even if Tang Ao wanted to talk about cooperation with the queen, it was obviously not realistic. Moreover, Tang Ao did not even know how to leave this snow field. Even if the queen agreed to form a mutually beneficial partnership with him, it would be useless if he could not leave the snow field. However, there was one thing that Tang Ao was sure of. These ice ants seemed to be living a very comfortable life in the snow field. But in reality, due to the lack of food, the ant colony's life in the ice field was extremely torturous. After Tang Ao opened his eyes, he found that Bing Xian was no longer here. However, Tang Ao wasn't in a hurry. Tang Ao had left a soul imprint on Bing Xian, so Tang Ao could sense Bing Xian's approximate location. After perceiving Bing Xian's approximate location, Tang Ao immediately set off. As Tang Ao made his move, Tang Ao summoned the frost blood snake in his life spirit space. However, to Tang Ao's bewilderment, the frost blood snake did not respond to Tang Ao's call. Could it be that this guy's intelligence is too low and he doesn't understand the call of the soul mark? Tang Ao thought to himself. Facing an existence like Bing Tong, Tang Ao did not dare to go there rashly. Therefore, Tang Ao decided to find the frost blood snake and see what it was doing. It actually did not respond to his call. Tang Ao formed a spirit beast contract with the frost blood snake so that it could become a great help to him. However, the frost blood snake did not listen to his orders at all. It did not play a role at all. After a moment of sensing, Tang Ao found that the frost blood snake was actually on the ground. The ice and snow above the snow field would constantly suppress a warrior's spiritual power. Naturally, it was the same for monsters. Therefore, Tang Ao had been hiding underground and did not dare to go out. He did not expect the brainless frost blood snake to rush to the ground. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.